Consume, enhance, replicate.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
We're live.
Now they should be able to
Yay.
hear us. Unless the loud music's hurt their ears.
Unless the loud music hurts their ears. I'm gonna go grab my charger for my
charter?
phone. Just in...
Are we?
Yep. Blah, blah, blah.
We
I have not had
colonizing a new
any-
world here.
Yeah.
I am a charter.
Get up.
Magna Carta your ass.
I got a flag. It's my country now.
Hey, careful. Careful.
I
Self-
claim this land in the name of Spain.
Where's the Eddie Izzard quote when I need it?
This is
Okay,
why we can't
you're
have
back.
these things.
Do you have a flag?
Thank you, Christopher Columbus, for being an idiot.
Eurofascist rape day. People hate it when I call it that, but I'm like, but I'm right, and they're like, yeah, but I'm
You're
like,
not supposed to point it out.
yeah, I'm like, but I'm right. Like, does that make you uncomfortable? Good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna sit here and eat my cheesecake. That's all I'm saying.
Eddie Izzard. We stole countries with the cunning use of flags.
And smallpox blankets.
And thus the beginning of Rise of Kingdoms.
Let me see. Yeah, here it is.
This is really why we can't have any nice things.
Hi, Black Flag. Hi, Pins. Hi, Doom. How you guys doing in chat?
Do you have a flag? No flag, no
Would
country.
you like to join us on our quest for the Holy Flag?
What is your favorite color?
I tell him, but he already got one, you see.
Okay, I am good.
No, we are not starting that shit. Oh, no.
Okay.
What
I
is your
am
favorite
back.
color?
And what is your favorite color?
Mhm.
Gonna be
The
Don't be a thing.
velocity of an unladen swallow.
I'm sorry, what now? What? I caught the last part of
laden
that
swallow.
one.
Of course.
Oh, okay.
Oh, of course you. Never mind. I'm not going there. I'm not going there.
Who needs a
Nah.
flag?
Yep.
Fun with flags. Okay, so blue, are you ready? Are you ready for the craziness that's about to ensue?
Yes.
We need an adult.
And I am good for whenever.
Assuming so from the silence.
Yes, that was a I am recording now. I am good for
I
whenever.
I meant from like Wykid and Raz, but
Oh,
yeah.
I thought you
I
were just
mean-
asking Blue.
It's
No,
like
yeah.
I'm like, how long
This is
do we
gonna be
sit here?
great night, guys. Here we go. All right.
We need an adult.
Oh my god, we're not even into top 3 yet, and we've already derailed. Okay,
Not my
here it
fault.
comes. No, it's not this time. Welcome to FFC Top 3, a show where we, your FFC hosts, count things down from 3 to number 1. Week. If you have a suggestion for top 3, be sure to drop us a note on Twitter at FocusFireChat, in our Discord, or even email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com. This week, live from somebody else's kitchen because I am house sitting, so things may sound a little different. But we have joining us some of my, well, former clanmates. I don't know how to describe them. Partners in crime is probably the most accurate. I have my
Yeah.
good friends Raz joining us for top 3, and we're going to discuss. Oh, and Blue's here too. And we're going to discuss 3 songs to game 2.
God, I'll just chopped liver over here. I'll just go back
No,
to
you're-
recording in silence.
Background somewhere.
Oh, and there's a dog that I'm house sitting, so there's.
We have already derailed everything. There's no turning back.
Right. We're going,
All right.
people.
It's okay. It's okay. That can be cut out.
No, it can't.
Top
Because you're
3.
all on the same track.
But you can cut out the segment.
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah.
it doesn't have to go in there.
Boop, boop.
But he's found something he wants to bark at. This week's top 3, we're doing top 3 songs. That's what it is. Top 3 songs that we like to game to. And this week, I'm going to have Wykid go first, Raz second, Blue third, and myself at the end of that. And then we will start it all over. So, Wykid, what is your number 3 song to game to?
Okay, so whenever I'm gaming, my primary focus really is just trying to have fun. So usually whenever I'm starting out, I'm not trying to get into like the beast mode, like I gotta focus and get in there. I usually try to just listen to something that puts me in a good mood. So You Can Call Me Al by Paul Simon is usually my go-to as far as like just putting me in a good smoothed out mood. I know it's kind of weird, but that's literally my very first go-to for whenever
You Can
just
Call Me
chill
Al.
out.
I don't know if I know that song off the top of my head.
Really?
I'm gonna call you out, Greg.
That's fine.
Dun.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Raz, what's your number 3?
Oh. I mean, I gotta do the Lost Boys. I mean, gotta do Bangarang, because if I don't, then I'm gonna go ahead and go straight like sweaty, kill everything in sight, because then I'm just I'm a trash panda. Period.
Yeah. Sniper, is that your sniper mood?
No, that's
Like,
that. I'm gonna get happy before I go sniper mode. I mean,
Oh,
'cause the
gotcha.
sniper one's like we don't go there.
Yeah,
There's a lot of swearing.
at least.
I mean, come on. Yeah.
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 All right.
We know where that
Okay. Okay. So Bangarang, I know that one mainly
Mhm.
because you introduced me to that one.
There's Skrillex. I mean, it's one of
Hmm.
the few acceptable
Waka
ones.
waka waka.
Really?
That's my definition of Skrillex right there. Is waka waka waka.
Basic. Man,
It's pretty accurate. I mean, if I do say
I
so
mean-
myself.
you're not wrong.
Wow,
The wow, 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 wow.
wow, 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 wow. Yeah, for like 3 hours.
Adderall.
Yeah. All right, Blue. What's your number 3 then?
So I don't listen to music while I game, like at all generally. So it's gonna be a fun week for me. If I do randomly turn on things, I kind of turn on just a mix in the background. I usually listen to non-instrumental stuff. So when I'm just running around, I kind of split it into like PvE and PvP. For PvE, I usually just listen to what's referred to as lo-fi, which is just like low fidelity instrumental electronica sometimes, but it's usually just really low key.
Greatest stuff to chill to.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah.
right. To just kind of ease into the game and not have to get too pumped up or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't like. It's actually one of the first things I turn off when I get games is the music. I'm usually not a huge fan
really?
of sound. Yeah, I'm not a big soundtrack person. Like I will turn off because I like listening to the ambient noises of the different
Okay.
areas of the different
That makes
spaces.
Mm.
So
Some
music
good ones in
tends.
Destiny for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, and I know that a lot of people are going to come at me for saying that I turn off the music in Destiny. I don't care. Come, fine, whatever.
I mean, at this
I'm like,
point, I don't think it's a
bring
bad
it.
thing. Like, I have my music in Destiny shut off now because I listen to Spotify.
But see, I
when
never
I'm
had
going
it
through
turned
and-
on.
Oh, the music and like Whisper, the Whisper
No, see,
mission is
I-
amazing.
I haven't run Whisper, so whatever.
Well,
You're fired.
there's
Oh.
some really good soundtracks.
Believe me, if there was a list of things, there's probably a shorter list of things that I have done in Destiny 2 than the things that I haven't. So I mean, but the same for Destiny actually. And I turned off the music after like playing for like a day or two. Just simply because I do the same thing with Halo. I do the same thing with like any of the RPGs that I play. Music is too much of a distraction. for me. I
Gotcha.
rather listen to the noises of, well, and also because half the time in RPGs I'm sneaking up on people, so I really don't need fight music pounding in my ears when I'm like, no, I need to know where they are. Like,
So how did you survive in
God.
Skyrim if there was no fight music to tell you when a stupid mud crab came up to you?
I'm paranoid and I'm always sneaking. So half the time I shut up, Pins. Shut up. Pins
Benny
is over
Hill
here
music.
effing bears. Effing bears. Like, Tomb Raider can just go take its bears and shove them.
Like, in my head right now, I'm seeing Blue playing this, and he's just creeping along. And as soon as the music changes, like, his eyes just go wide. Crap,
Oh yeah,
crap,
yeah,
crap, crap, crap.
yeah. If
It
that's
goes like Lemur
oh my
9000 on this shit.
God. Oh my
That was like
gosh.
the best part of like Oblivion and Skyrim is the fact that you heard the fight music because there was an animal trying
So
to
the
attack
only
you,
the
and you
only
turn
one
around and you see it's this tiny little mud
Oh
crab.
yeah. No, the only
With a
time that
knife.
actually I used the music for Elder Scrolls was actually Morrowind because you couldn't fast travel.
Okay, gotcha.
Mhm.
But with Skyrim and Oblivion, half the time I was sneaking. It was like one of the first things I maxed out, so most of the time creatures didn't see me. So usually I discovered that something was around me because I was trying to fast travel away, and it's like, you can't, enemies are nearby. I'm like, where are you? I don't know you're there. You don't know I'm here. So this is going to be awkward for both of us because like, let's go surprise each other. Come on.
It's funny. So the actually is similar to yours, Blue, because whenever I'm just on Destiny doing like very benign things like grinding for Fractaline or just running the same lost sector over and over trying to finish bounties, I turn on lo-fi type music as well, where or like ambient noise. Like Spotify has some really great chill playlist. I kind of tend to lurk when I'm doing PvP stuff that's just consistently the same thing over and over. But number 2, Wykid. What's your number 2?
Okay, so my number 2 is one that was actually introduced to my fellow guest here. It was introduced to me, Bone Dance by Vardensphere. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Is that how you pronounce it, Raz?
Vardensphere, yes.
Vardensphere, yeah. So that one's definitely been my go-to trance kind of, once I get into a groove, to keep it kind of music that I listen to. So
Gotcha.
definitely got the under bass tones to just kind of keep my movement flowing in the game. So that's kind of where I go to with that one.
A lot of the Ivanosphere stuff is really good for that, it seems.
It is beautiful. Because I
Raz. Number 2.
Number 2. I don't know. Are we transitioning to I'm getting a little bit more annoyed, or somebody actually sniped me and I'm absolutely pissed off at this point? Because I mean, this can go either way right now.
Well, let's pick one and do the other for the number 1.
All right. So let's see. Number 2. We'll probably say one of the ones that. No, I take it back. Mystery Skulls. Mystery Skulls in general. There's Paralyzed, and there's another one. I can't think of it because it's not in front of me right now. But I'd say it's the I'm gonna try to stay calm, but there is a 50-50 chance that I'm gonna be the idiot that's just gonna run ahead and then just give up at that point, and then if everybody's holding me back, what's the last word? Oops, my bad.
And that's when I'm sitting there going, Raz, wait for me.
No. It's because some idiot decides they're gonna tether me, and then all bets are off. Okay, that's it. That's you're done.
You triggered.
I'm going to delete you from your life. Okay,
Triggered.
To quote Gothics, I'm going to delete you from your life.
Triggered.
Period.
Yeah. Blue, what's your number 2?
So when I have to run PvP, I usually turn on glitch hop. Mostly because it helps kind of put me in a little bit more fast-paced frame of mind.
Gotcha. Okay.
Nice.
I'm actually going to list actual titles of songs
Yeah,
for
I
my
don't.
last two.
I couldn't give you actual titles if my life
Yeah, I
depended
know.
on it.
I know. I know,
I'm
and that's
like
okay.
I'm terrible with songs.
You're good. You're good. It's just like I have a very set playlist that I tend to
Mhm.
listen to when I play that I pulled together a while ago, and there are two songs in particular that are on there that are just kind of my go-to to get in the right mindset or whatever, whether it's like for PvP or for role playing or whatever. And the number 2 on my list is Come Together, which is a remix done by Gary Clark Jr. and Junkie XL. It's a rock version, like a harder rock than the original Beatles Come Together.
I was gonna say,
So
wasn't the
yeah.
original kind of a rock version too? I was
It is
confused.
rock, but it's like, yeah, the original's rock, but it's very,
Mellow rock.
yeah, it's the Beatles, so it's still
That's totally death metal. I
a
don't
lot
know what
more.
you're talking about.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yellow
Yellow
Submarine.
Jesus Christ, that's like, whew, I don't know how that's not banned at places.
So funny story. My sister
Oh, here we go.
absolutely despises the Beatles now because for her senior year in
boy.
band,
Hmm.
her band director, who was also my band director back in high school, decided they were going to do a Beatles concert. And Yellow Submarine was like their finale. And
Mm. Mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm-mm.
when you're rehearsing it over and over and over, you tend to either love the song or end up hating it. And most of the Beatles really, that's not our favorite anymore, unfortunately.
That's actually the same excuse why I have not to like Michael Jackson's Beat It. I had to sing that in chorus, and we sung it for a year straight, and I was like, I'm done with this song. Nope. Mm-mm.
There's so many better songs than Beat It from Michael anyway. Pretty Young Thing, PYT,
Mm-hmm.
way
There's a
better
lot
than
of good
Beat
ones.
It. Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. We are up to our number 1. So what is the good one on your list, Wykid?
Okay, so this one I am actually going to break off from the PvP thing for doing PvE whenever I'm just rushing through and grinding to get my mind off the monotony of it.
Mhm.
I just pick one of the silliest songs that I can imagine my guardian just running through the environment, just dancing and singing to. And
Benny
this is
Hill.
part of the reason why I like no, well, this is part of the reason why I like that recent Titan video that
Oh my
launched on
gosh.
Twitter.
Yes.
But not that same song, but I play Walking on Sunshine.
You're a warlock?
What?
Just like,
Uh-huh.
hi, I'm walking on sun.
Exactly. It's just like, don't it feel good? Dun, 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 dun. Just running around, throwing fireballs, just having a blast. Like,
I need you to do me a favor. I need you to get the link to the YouTube video that you posted earlier
can't right
today
now.
and post it in
posted in
our
a
private chat so we can post it. And
Oh my
yeah, because
god! Yeah,
people need to see this video.
Oh yes, they do. It's amazing.
It's what Titans are thinking about, and it's
Oh my god.
a new caboose from Red versus Blue is the easiest way to describe
Yeah,
it.
yep, it really is.
Nice.
It's amazing.
Anyway, while he's doing that, Raz, what is your number 1?
Let's see here.
Let's see. Number 1. Excuse me. Okay. Silverchair. Anthem for the year 2000. Because it's the perfect throwback of the good days. And it's the only way to just kind of unwind if you come out of Crucible for just far too long. And it's the happy little like Groot dance vibe for me. It just kind of just kind of wiggle a little bit.
Dance, the Groot,
It's,
Groot, Groot.
it's the little Groot dance that I'm trying to do right now, and failing miserably at.
Also, no one can see you, so that's good too.
Oh yeah. Like anything
Cool.
that goes back to the good days is the good 90s.
There we go. Posted in the Post in the chat.
Oh god,
Thank
no.
you. I posted it in stream chat for the live stream for you guys to witness that.
So
All right,
terrible.
Blue.
That glorious.
Mine is just in general electro swing, just as a
Mhm.
general subtype. It's just like it gives me a good tempo to stay with, whether I'm running PvE or PvP. I find that if I have a like music that has a tempo that matches what I'm doing, it just makes the task a little bit less monotonous, which for Destiny PvP is a very important thing for me
Mhm.
because it's extremely
Remind
monotonous.
me to show you the funk playlist that I use because I like the electro swing, but sometimes I want a little bit more
Pop. Not pop
bit-
like genre, but like pop like beat wise.
more of a like heavy bass.
Oh, okay.
Dealing with like, electric bass and stuff like that because you get a little bit more of that feel to it. Anyway, it is great. Number one for me is my one song that can basically help. So wrong. Help get me in the mood for especially PvP and by Bishop Rig because
You broke up. You're breaking up a little bit.
did you get the song
Nope.
title and everything out of that?
Nope.
Okay,
I just
so
got you back.
sorry, I am on that really, really tiny, tiny computer. But my number one is River by Bishop Briggs.
Okay.
It is to just kind of get into the headspace and the mood of PvP and just that attitude of, I don't know, strutting around a little bit. Get that mentality that you're going in and you're going to wreck everybody
Yeah, I'm a badass.
thing. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
She gonna smash.
Did you guys have any other ones on your list? Some also rans of things that you wanted to put on your list or
Silence.
This is a trick
Silence.
question.
I hear that the band did a pretty good one. It was Garfield and somebody.
Huh?
Never mind.
Garfield
Yeah.
in this somewhere?
Hmm?
Never mind.
Went over my head. It went over my head.
Yeah.
It did.
Havoc CD actually is really fun to listen to when you're playing.
Okay, I can't listen to Havoc CD while I'm playing. And there's a very specific reason why.
Oh, because of the Mara song, or
Well, that's distracting, number one. But it's actually my alarm for waking up in the morning.
I gotcha.
So that's already cued in my head as far as like where it belongs in my life at this point. Is that's what I wake up to as far as my alarm going off in the morning. So anytime I hear it, there's a panic that sets in now.
Funny. The
I
Witcher
can't hear
soundtrack is
the
really good too.
Forsaken opening. That's my alarm, and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta get up. Can't do it anymore.
Songs that just kind of come to mind.
I actually have one from In This Moment. Is this a mature rating podcast? Or are we allowed? But I Can Be Your Whore by In This Moment. I like that one as far as just the get it. That's my kind of tear it up mood.
Gotcha.
So
Raz?
I've got two. The two I'm gonna tear shit up. You got Mindless Faith with Shit Show, and One Woman Army from Porcelain Black, because it's just perfect. I'm gonna go into Crucible and I'm just gonna either be total trash band or be put in the trash. I don't know. Usually put it in the trash for like the first three, but whatever.
Gotcha. Yeah. That is going to wrap us for this top three. I don't have any. I mean, I have other songs that are kind of on my list, but it's not stands out. I have a lot of Dorothy on my playlist. I've got a lot of, and I don't know, just a lot of variety things, as well as like folk music that ends up on my list. So, wrap us for this week. Us.
nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know what your what your jams are for playing video games too. Some people are talking in chat about having soundtracks on their list. Some people tend to listen to like heavy metal. Just kind of shoot us a tweet or an email or just hit us up with your top 3 songs that you like to listen to while gaming. Kind of gives us a chance to listen to new things and branch out our genres as well. And guys, next week, remember, everybody loves a list. I'm good.
All right.
So I finally got this Martyr's Retribution grenade launcher.
Oh, yeah? It's evil. Have you gone into momentum with it? It's so gross.
I'm like, oh, panic gun.
Mm-hmm. So
I
I've been
hated the
helping.
Saint 14 grenade one. I absolutely fucking hate
That's
it.
what it is. That's Martyr's Retribution.
Oh yeah.
I've been helping Issaquol get her to do it right now.
I
is
still
to
can't.
Go,
I still can't donate. By the way,
did you do bounties
done
from all 4 of them? Did
every
you
single
win?
thing that is offered. I'm doing the last thing for
You-
Spider right now to do the stupid
Did
quest.
you?
That's the only thing I've not done.
Okay.
Like it's
All to the tower, like there's like
Yep,
little
they're
glowing things.
all of them are activated. All of them are there. I've done all the quests for the campaign.
Huh.
I'm like, all
Proud
right,
of
cool.
you.
I'm like, okay, cool. Fuck you. I actually tried. I actually went out and did all the shit that you wanted me to do so that I could participate in your goddamn event. And no.
The vendors at the tower were like, "We're sorry, we weren't expecting this."
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck?
That's funny.
When did you decide to
We
play
weren't
with us?
expecting you.
We turned that off. Like, I was just saving energy. We were converting it over here.
Oh man.
So yeah,
Yeah.
like literally, I'm
Was bugged. You had to prompt out and talk to him again.
No, I've gone back and forth between Saint. He still won't give me the other gun that I'm supposed to get from him. So whatever.
Also, if it makes you feel better, I saw somebody donated over 100K the other day. So
Yeah, that's
they
I
got
don't
you
even
covered.
know. I don't even know how the fuck you get that much.
So part of it
course, I
is
have
by
thoughts.
upgrading on the different planets, which gives you bonus fractaline from the tower.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
Upgraded
I'm just saying, like, I don't even understand how you got the time to do that shit.
Some people play the game for a living, Blue.
Weird.
Donating is one of the most I really wish they would have upped the amount you can donate.
Because it's
Have like
capped
a
at
slider.
100, right? Isn't that what it is?
Mm-hmm. If they had a slider of it.
I love the current conspiracy fan conspiracy theory that the reason they didn't send out the last 3 was because they were going to give it to us all the time. Because I'm like, that would be really funny. We knew you were going to do it. Did you?
Really?
This feels like I'm playing blackjack against the house.
I mean, we are.
Yeah.
Not wrong.
What? No.
Oh boy.
I'm not playing in someone else's game world.
For whatever this is going to give us.
Yeah.
Satisfaction of holding a button down.
Which, ironically enough, is actually a thing.
Oh my god, that's amazing. Yes. My favorite quote still is Drunk Ghost saying that he loves Zavala. Like, I still think that is one of my favorite like quips from Ghost.
Yeah.
Dancing says that he came across a clip on Twitter that's like if you don't have that, when you don't have the unbroken title, Zavala says at the beginning, imagine not being unbroken.
That's some serious shade. We're gonna
Yeah,
get people
surprisingly, he hasn't
from
said that to
Zavala.
me yet.
Pope.
So here's a funny thing. We went back into D1 because Raz never played D1. And so we were running around the tower. Zavala is taller in Destiny 1 than he is in Destiny 2.
Is he taller, or
D2
are you
we're
shorter,
taller
Under the
than
bus here.
or were you shorter?
I
Did you
guess,
grow?
maybe
Did you
we
grow between
grew.
D1 and
I have
D2?
not. I have not grown since 7th grade, so I have no fucking clue how my guardian grew. But just saying. I have been 5'2" for a fucking long time.
Her ghost is an Ahamkar. I will grant you one wish.
I want to be a real girl.
Oh my god, really?
Really?
I want to be a real girl. Have boobs and
Oh my god, what is that?
all
Oh, that's a
right.
war beast. Turned a quarter and there's
Hey.
a giant fucking golden war beast chasing me. Go away.
All made green taller. No, Cole did not make me taller.
There's never mind.
Yeah, there's. I don't think there. It's already a mature stream. It's gonna. It's gonna devolve.
It's we don't have an adult, okay?
No, we don't. No, we don't.
No.
Then again, say it. Do it.
Just gird yourself for what is to come. Pins. I may have screenshotted.
Phrasing.
Phrasing.
I may have screenshot your message and sent it to both to warn them.
Oops.
Okay. Blue, whenever you're not dying from war
I'm
beast.
trying to kill this fucking.
Don't
there he goes.
hurt my puppers.
Oh!
By
I
the
heard
way,
those. I heard those puppers. I killed them all. Their fucking gold skulls are done.
I will fucking murder you in your sleep.
Right now,
You'll have
I'm
to find
playing
me
the Deadpool.
first.
Sitting there looking at Raz.
Yes, I'll
going,
get you in June.
Oh yeah,
okay?
yeah, your puppers
can't
are
run from
completely
me.
fine. Murder them in their sleep.
Stop it. No.
Kill them this way.
Stuff them in the trunk.
They are poor, misunderstood.
I didn't mean actually do it.
Hell with all of you.
Misunderstood. How are they fucking misunderstood? They have vein juice.
Start either. You leave my precious little babies alone and their bane juice. They can't help it. They're psychopathic little ankle-biting bastards, and I want all of them, and to hell with all of you. To hell with all of you. We'll go back to your corner on Whore Island, and I'm going to take my puppers with me. Okay? That's how this is going to go.
There's so many logical
No.
loopholes
We're not-
in this conversation.
She is.
Like,
She's the Smeagol. She's sitting there going, "Don't touch my precious. Don't touch my precious." These are my puppers.
Yep. So
yeah,
welcome
Pins,
to
Pins,
the RP.
I'm right there. I'm right there with you, Pins. Wait,
RP,
what?
where basically she brings in the freaking the pet. It's just a thing.
Yeah. There's a couple. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. There's a couple of them. Deal
And
with
I
it.
take every advantage I possibly can to come up with an excuse to kill one of them.
And that's why I
Her
totally
pet
disappears
Wish
every
Dragon
time.
yet
It's
Black
your
Flag. Don't remind her.
All right, you
Not
guys good to
RP'd
go?
that yet.
No, not yet.
Yep.
Not yet. Give it time.
How much time?
Not much.
Okay, now are you ready?
Yes.
I is ready.
Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on February 14th, 2020, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. This week's episodes are going to be focused around exploring the concept of vampirism within Destiny. This particular episode will serve as what we have come to call the intro session of the week's exploration. Before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86.
This is the house-sitting, golden doodle petting, green-eyed music lover.
And last but definitely not least, in the hot seat as guest co-host, we have our good friends Razor's Edge Raz and Wykid Jester. So I'm going to let the lady go first. So Wykid, how are you doing?
My heart hurts right now, dude. That hurts.
My heart hurts.
Partially because there's some truth to that statement. All right. I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
I like how we didn't even make it 30 seconds into the show.
Right?
I couldn't resist that one. That one was...
I love you, Blue.
Raz, how are you doing?
I'm just absolutely wonderful. Wonderful. Beautiful.
So, usual introductory questions for you two. Where can we find you guys on the internet?
Raz, you want to go first on that one?
Oh, you're so kind.
Mm-hmm.
I lurk. I lurk on Twitter. I mean, the handle's the same thing. Razor's Edge Raz over there. And yeah, that's pretty much straightforward. The coffee's kicking in. Congratulations. This is what you get to deal with now. So that's where you get to find me. And yeah, all you. You dear.
You can also find Raz in Hydra on PlayStation and Xbox.
No.
Yes, you can.
No.
I'll give you a gamer tag. Don't worry.
It's all the same thing.
Yeah, it's all the same thing. For me, I'm on Twitter, on YouTube, same thing, Wykid Jester, doing some lore series with the Lunchbite lore episodes, which will be starting back up later on this weekend as I launch the final episodes for the current one that I've got going. And I am on Xbox, PC, and PlayStation now, though I prefer not to play on PC if we're going into PvP. So
Yeah, it's still rough.
yeah.
Yeah, that ain't happening.
Okay. So if you guys can't tell, both Wykid, Raz, and I play together quite a bit. We're, I guess I could say, former clanmates, Hydra,
Yes.
and we pretty much play weekly, if not daily, with the three of us. So shenanigans ensue. And just a warning to audience members or listeners, please preview this episode before you have little ones around, because it's likely to have moments of that aren't safe for little ears. Just heads up.
In the words of Dave Chappelle, you better hide your kids.
Basically, because
You go home now.
So
You make the wife cry.
time for me to torture you two a little bit. You ready?
Oh boy.
Come on.
Let's start with Wykid. You have been on the show before, so you've kind of gone through these questions a little bit. But I want to see if things have changed, because it's been a couple of months, and I want to get Raz's input as well. As what is your favorite lore story from Destiny?
Okay, so favorite lore story in current opinion is still Last Word. It's still my favorite lore story, but Unveiling has actually started becoming more and more of a, I guess, more commonly talked about story that I've been dealing with lately, as far as just the books around it and the concepts that are being discussed in it.
You've also, that's a lot of what your Lunchbite lore is about right now too. You've
Yep.
been diving into it specifically with that show.
Yep.
Yeah. Raz, what about you? What's your favorite lore story from Destiny?
Throw me under the bus again.
Mhm.
Why?
It's not throwing you under the
It
bus.
is totally throwing me, because you know
It is
exactly what
not.
it is. I mean, I do. I'm becoming more and more enamored. As much as I hate to admit it, I'm falling in love with the Hive and everything with Thorn and story with Last Word and everything else. And it's somebody else's fault. Vehemently so.
Can't see it, but I've just put my chin on my hands and just
Yeah,
went,
you're doing the thing. Like,
Don't
please
say
tell me more. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey, chat, you guys got any idea what they're talking about?
Nope.
Mhm.
Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't listening. What are we talking about?
Thorn,
Oh, okay.
Thorn, Hive Lore. So,
It's spiky. It tasty. It tastes like suffering.
oh my goodness.
I'm going
So,
home.
I don't think
I'm
you're
going-
supposed to
I'm
put
going-
it in your
I'm
mouth.
going home. I'm going home.
Run away!
you are home for one. You are home for one.
There's no escape.
Uh-huh.
I need an
Where we
adult.
torture Blue.
We are the adults.
So,
So, Simpsons.
let's do...
I'm in danger.
Huh?
Yeep.
Yeah.
So here's, I want you to kind of expand on that a little bit because I know the reason why, and I know that some of our chat knows the reason why you enjoy that story in particular. But for people who haven't followed your RP accounts or anything like that, would you mind kind of sort of explaining why that story in particular has stood out to you?
Oh dear. Well,
Need,
then.
like, I don't need
Now
graphic
I'm the one with
details.
my hands on my chin.
Yeah, you better keep
Don't
the hands
graphic
right there
details.
across your mouth, okay? Because that's where this is going to be going very soon.
Wait, what?
Okay. Anyways,
Don't read too much into it, Blue. Just
don't read into
turn
it,
away.
no.
Just turn
No.
away.
Just run away. I'll send another war beast after you.
I'm trying. Your war beasts are being mean right now.
Stop being mean to the dog. You just be nice to the dog, and it won't bite you in the ass. Okay? I mean, that's how this works. Oh God, yeah. So there is, the wonderful Twitter side of RP in the Destinyverse, and pretty much how I ran into Green and Wykid at this point. So my OC, for lackluster terms, ran into the Golden Boy, and well, let's just do the simple math. Thorn happened. There's no other way I'm going to say this. Thorn happened. Nisa's still mad. And this is why we can't have nice things in the Dreaming City.
Yeah. So to kind of fill in some of the details without getting graphic,
Yeah, this is all on you. You can explain the rest of this.
the three of us started RPing together a little over a year ago at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Wykid plays Shen. Lisa, I played Petra, and the story with Shin started taking that darker turn because we started getting more about Shin and the shadows. And so learning that Shin is also using Thorn and everything, Wykid decided to implement that in his stories a bit. And Nisa got up close and personal with Thorn.
Oh yeah, let's just find out it's a veil and go full throttle in the middle of the friggin' Dreaming City. 'Cause that's just
Basically,
a brilliant idea.
Shin slash Veil,
Judge and
basically.
Veil.
Yeah. Basically put her through the test essentially, and she's odd. Raz learned a lot about Thorn's history and Shin and everything like that thanks to that. There's no
You could say she got a taste for it.
You make my poor ghost suffer so much. As if she doesn't already argue enough with him.
So, so beyond that story and RPing that got you into the lore exploration, like diving into lore first, and let Raz think about it a moment.
Wait, what was the inquiry again on that one?
What got you into lore exploration?
Uh,
RPing and stuff like that. If RPing is the answer, great. But like, if there's something else that kind of
well, I mean, yeah, the RP kind of helped, just because I've been doing RP for like literary RP online for, I don't even want to admit this, like back in like 96. Okay. I know life that because it was a perfect outlet at the time. So if I find a story arc that I like, I'll kind of stick with it. And I just started, nitpicking a little bit, with the OC thing with Nisa, and then, stumbled across the podcast and you
Mhm.
guys, and then it just kind of like went from there. At that point, became less of a okay, I'm going to flesh out a character to hey, I'm actually going to invest a lot of time and interest into this game to see where it goes. And at this point, there is no Alice in Wonderland. I've lost track where the White Rabbit went, and I'm pretty sure my Ahamkara is a freaking Jabberwocky at this point. So that's where I'm going on that one.
Snicker snack.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Snicker snack.
I know the answer to this one as well, and loud and proud for the people in the back. Raz, what class do you primarily play?
Really?
I know.
Really?
Our audience doesn't.
Look, there is only one. There's only one master race with the hunters and the night stalkers. Everything else is
Class.
absolutely wrong. I'm sorry.
Class.
No.
Mr. Class.
It's not a race.
Classes.
I'll shoot you all. I kill.
She's a Titan wannabe. I don't know about that, Pins.
Oh hell no!
Ooh.
She likes to
Those are
stay.
fighting words.
Oh,
Your fighting words did run.
Oh,
Run.
oh, Pens. Oh, sweetheart.
Oh, bless your heart. Run.
You know, I was gonna ask you if you wanted to go out to Permanis, but I mean, man, you just no, sweetheart, no, no, you go to your corner now.
Oh no, it's shut your buddies. She actually, Raz was very forward thinking when it came to Night Stalker, and she was using a bottom tree Night Stalker before anybody else, before they gave it a buff.
She's OG bottom tree.
I am OG.
bottom-
I'm OG. Like mess your face up, okay? Period.
Uh,
If you can't tell, she's sassy.
Oh,
But
is that Mobius quiver or is that
yeah, it's the six
Mhm.
shot.
6-shot?
Hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. She's been running that for as long as I've known her.
Since I've
And
pretty
probably
much.
I ran that. That was pretty much exclusively what I ran in D1, but then I switched back to Way of the Trapper with D2, just because I think the deadfall is a little bit more my speed.
Now, since they
Right now.
buffed the bottom tree on the hunter, it actually does as much damage, if not more, than Golden Gun for a single shot for Celestial.
Yeah.
True,
So
but
it's
I like
pretty-
dodging to go invisible.
Yeah, I do
And
too.
also Keen
And
Scout. Keen Scout is. Mhm.
No,
Yeah.
just give
That's
me
fair.
Orpheus, and I will just
Mhm.
Pop
Oh yeah,
the
Orpheus.
entire team. Like just get out of my
Orpheus
way.
mhm.
Orpheus is a delicious thing.
It is a absolutely gorgeous piece. Just,
So to kind of direct us back to the topic that we're here for tonight, vampires, vampirism in general. It's a question just purely of my own making. I'm curious what got you into the histories and the mythologies of that in particular. And
Well, hey Green, real quick before we go too far into it, let's run through some quick housekeeping notes and then jump into that just for the intros, because we skipped housekeeping notes last week, so we just have a few little ones this week.
okay.
So
Hey,
boop, boop. Okay, now you can go.
want me to say it again? I could say it again.
Sure. I feel like I'm walking into a trap and I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm like this is like, would you like me to say it again? Yes. Yes.
Guys, and this actually goes for you too, Blue, because this is something I've been curious about with you as well. So
Okay.
I'm going to have Raz go first. Wykid is kind of on the fence with this one because I know Wykid has not as much background into vampires as both you and Raz, but what got you into the mythology vampires just as a topic that you really decided to dive into? Raz?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay. Well, it's a two-part for me. I mean, there's the gaming aspect because anybody familiar with White Wolf's World of Darkness?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I am like the walking totem of the flesh crafters because I have the Ouroboros dragon.
Nice.
So I mean, the absolute love for that was from there, and all the clans, the bloodlines, the regents, all this whole batshit insanity that comes with the Sabbat. But from the mythology point, there's so many different aspects that have popped out. Like primarily, you've got everything from Lilith with the Sumerians, the Mesopotamian era, everything that ties into Kabbalah with that, and my own personal heritage background. You have everything from the Strigoi, the Moroi, spirit paths, basically disembodied, angry ancestor spirits that come back. Eastern versions. It's like my own sick addiction, basically.
Okay.
Vampirism in general, because there's so many different aspects that you can look at. Spiritual ones, energy draining, the chi ones, Eastern ones. It's one of those things you just kind of spiral and kind of lose control at that point. There's just something absolutely fascinating with it.
That's one of the things that I think is going to be really interesting to dive into as we compare the different and enemy races in Destiny, because not only do enemy races have aspects of vampirism, but our own characters do.
Yeah, well, I mean, to clarify there, the Eastern concept of life force stealing is really where you see a lot of the connection to Destiny with vampirism.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's not, and that, I mean, what I mean by that is that there's not,
not blood sucking like
and so
not the traditional
right.
sense
Well,
of it.
because the traditional Western vampire, the reason why they're focused on on blood is due to the Greek concept of the source of life being the balances of the humors,
blood,
right? And so when you have a Western culture in the Western culture, blood was ascribed to holding the actual essence of life. Whereas you have like the Middle and Far East, the Near East, all of them, they value like the aspect of blood. Yeah, the aspect of blood was still important, but it wasn't the seat of power. It wasn't the seat of that life spark, if you will. It was actually like more spiritual, which is where you get like the ethereal, wraiths and all that. And that's what you could, yeah, definitely. But I mean, like that's where you get the concept that's much more ascribed to like the hive, and even us as guardians in the game. That's where you're going to see a lot more parallels being drawn, which makes sense because in Destiny there's a lot more ties to the Eastern mythos really than there is to a lot of the Western.
Did you get your fascination for it, or when did that come into play?
So similar, like I've always been, I've role played. We've talked about that quite a bit. White Wolf was a big proponent because of the propensity for that game to be much more focused on the actual role playing instead of just the hack and slash component. So it's always been a very big interest. We personally played Garu more, which is werewolf. But we always interacted with like mages and vampires as that entire campaign is really kind of a full circle. You don't really get one without the other. So like the mythos was always, the mythos was all, well, and then you have like Wraith and all the other ones.
Oh yeah, you can't forget Wraith, and then you get into Hunter, and then
but so like the whole aspect of vampirism it's always been a fascinating thing. To me, it's more of a literary study. It's because of the importance of things like Carmilla. You have the breaking into multiple. How would I say it? Carmilla and Dracula, for their own specific, unique reasons, broke a lot of social norms in their own ways. and I kind of talked about that when I did the snapshot on the Karnstein armlets, especially for Carmilla. Dracula was much more about social norms and the struggles of what would be referred to as polite society and religious upbringing and stuff like that. You had definite struggles of Catholicism versus the other Protestant religions within Dracula as well. But so there was always something from a literary standpoint that really kind of drove those mythos to another level. And then when I was in college, I actually, my major is in psychology, but I have a minor in thanatology. And it's an emphasis on the social mythos of vampirism as a symbol of how different societies deal with the concept of death and dying. And so I basically spent 3 years doing an in-depth dive of Dracula as a gateway into Victorian death attitude, because the evolution of the vampire as a mythical figure from the Victorian era and before into what we see today is it's a stark metamorphosis, but it's also a very interesting metamorphosis when you look at the transition of our attitude towards death as a society. We have a much more romanticized view of death than they did in the times of Carmilla, of Dracula, of the actual Grimm's fairy tales and stuff like that. You can see this really in any fairy tales evolution. Today's world is dominated by Disney.
Right. Well,
The past was dominated by Grimm's.
It's a lot darker. The original stories are way darker, and like you're saying, Disney is kind of Disney-fied and PG'd them for everyone, or
right. But I
made
mean,
them
but my
G-rated
point,
for
as much as that aggravates me, because and so, like, for full disclosure, I grew up reading Grimm's fairy tales. Like, that's pretty much what I grew up. I grew up learning how to read with the Odyssey, with Grimm's fairy tales. That's where I kind of cut my teeth, as if you will, on fantasy novels. So for me, I've always had a problem because Disney. This is not meant to be a severe dig at Disney. Disney didn't invent any of the stories that they're famous for. They actually stole them and PG'd them. And my problem with that is that a lot of the messages that were included in the original mythos get lost when you take that out.
Right.
And there's culturally, there's an explanation for that. I could talk for hours on why you see a gentrification of the legends in today's society. It's ties into the concept of the hierarchy of needs and the social sociological evolution of what we need and what we have. And so there's that. But I mean, so going back to like vampirism in particular, though, it's always been a kind of a gateway to examine that exact concept, because it's one of those things where, like I said, I have a minor in thanatology. So the approach of a society to the concept of death and the concept of dying is always been kind of in the back of my mind a fascination, because it's just one of those things that is really a crucial component to what makes us human. And that's the whole thing with vampirism, is the concept of immortality and what that cost is really kind of at the core of the vampiric mythos. Is, okay, hey, we're going to take away this crippling, quote unquote limitation. But what does that do? What does that do to a person if you don't have that degree of, hey, you only have X amount of years to do this? That is something that is a very big driving factor for humanity. If I remember one of the taglines in my thesis that I put was, immortality is something that you have to pay with your morality for. So the price of immortality is nothing more than becoming immoral. Because when you don't have mortality, your morality really is one of the first things sacrificed, because there is nothing that is important to you other than yourself. Whereas when you have mortality, you have the need to prepare the world for when you're not here. There's an unconscious degree to which you are constantly worried about what happens when you're gone. And when you're mortal, as you know, all humanity is, you know, it's like, what happens when you're not here? That's a question that everyone, regardless of where you are in life, you have to constantly, you are constantly battling, whether it's, you know, a huge component or it's something that you've pushed to the side. It is something that every human being has thought about. And vampirism is this weird thing where there's like, you know, this exploration, if you will, of, well, what happens if you don't have to worry about that?
Right.
You know, what
And there's
type of crazy stuff happens?
authors who have kind of dove into that specifically within their story, their vampire stories in particular.
Like Anne Rice is one that pops to mind immediately.
So Wykid, I don't know about you. What about your true vampires and vampirism and that concepts?
So I definitely have not been into in depth as far as Raz and Blue have. I definitely share a fascination for them. A lot of my initial interest in them came from obviously use in pop culture references, movies that, for the most part, usually depict them in a very different and biased situation than the mythology and the lore does. Once I started actually looking at the history of vampires and started looking at, you know, the different kind of topics associated with them, consumption of blood, and just the general idea of absorbing somebody's life and then comparing that, because the way I look at it is trying to compare it to what I see in actual human history, where you had like there have been some tribes before that actually consumed parts of their enemies' bodies and believed that that gave them power of their from their enemies. And that's documented stuff from literally battle reports of history. And this is kind of, I guess, probably the biggest interest that I've had is actually what Jay kind of just touched on, is the idea of the morality and what changes about your morality. I kind of saw it a little bit differently, in that it's not. I don't think morality causes necessarily or immortality causes a loss of morality so much as or causes immorality so much as a change in perspective of what kind of morality really matters.
Yeah, you play a bigger game.
Right. And really whenever I see that, I think there's three different parts to that concept, where you have us as mortal human beings, and we do worry about, you know, preparing the world, as you said, preparing the world for us leaving it. But I think that in itself is still thinking of us, because I mean, think of our, you know, when we pass our things down to our children, we want something of us left in the world. So whenever you're immortal,
your legacy,
whenever you're immortal, you don't have to really necessarily worry about what your legacy is. So I think that's when it switches from that initial concept of, oh, well, I need to do something for others or about others to pass myself into the world, to where it's more of a focused on yourself experience. But at the same time, that too, I think, comes to an end, because, again, as you said before, or as we were talking about a few minutes ago, you get a much grander scope of understanding of what's going on in the world, and there's only so many human experiences that you can actually really accomplish, and I think that's a very limited. I think, you know, it's one of the things I think that they were covering in in Witcher, the series that we were watching, was that one of the dragons, the character that had lived so long, was like, this is my last experience. There's a finite point that you reach where, once you've lived so long, all other actions seem kind of pointless. So what are you really trying to do? I mean, I think there's a point where it goes from selfishness to the extent of extending one's life, to where once the extension of one's life is no longer a consideration, there's the concern of wanting to just experience everything.
Mhm.
And then once you've experienced everything, finding value in what's worth being experienced.
Yeah, you can. It's the old adage that the journey is better than the destination. It's actually the journey that
Right.
we're concerned with, because, and it's so funny because that's what a lot of, even not even modern, but like religions preach that in their own way. It's don't focus on the destination, focus on how you get there. The means to the end. The end doesn't justify the means justify the end. Because once you get to the destination, it's actually really common with people who have found wild success and pick an area. A lot of times they will go on record saying, "Well, I got it, but I don't know what to do now." Like it's like you,
Like
it's the
chasing a
dog.
car.
Yeah, I was just about to say it's like the dog chasing the car. It's like, okay, I caught the car. Oh no! Like you don't know what to do with it. And that's also really, that's not, I mean, like that example right there, that's not even just a human thing. I think that's just, we have to have those drives as a base level of instinct, because that's what, allows our species, that's evolutionarily what allows our species to survive. But it's so weird because, oh, go for it.
That also creates the dissonance that happens
Yes.
within yourself, in the fact that if you do not accomplish that goal as fast as you
Yes.
want to,
Yep.
you cause yourself disease, or just to go into a depression of sorts. So it's both without having the reminder of being the more important part. We oftentimes just throw ourselves at something, and when we don't get there right away,
it's the weird double-edged sword of, like, especially modern society for humans, is that we have gotten so good at doing what we do that we achieve, like, I mean, I know it's kind of like a long-standing joke, like the whole concept of first world problems, but that's what they are. That's what a first world problem is that you don't have anything on your hierarchy of needs, and you literally your brain is creating problems to continue giving yourself a drive.
Yep.
I mean, if you look at people and I tread very lightly on this, but if you look at people in third world and second world countries where their issues are literally talking about survival, sometimes the benchmark of what makes them happy is ridiculously different than what would be a quote unquote happy individual in America and anywhere in the European Union, anywhere of these like first world countries, because they're high, they have an actual literal need that is not being met, and so their focus is legitimately on whether that's safety, reproduction, whatever. The hierarchy of needs actually, from a social standpoint, really does drive that home too. Sorry.
How do we bring this? No, you're good. How do we bring this?
Okay, so I actually have something, because going back with what I was talking about as far as relating that back into the vampires and where my interest was in that. Destiny is one of those things where we run into the issues of the idea of living such a long life and the moral conundrums that we have with that. That by far to me is the biggest interest that I have with Destiny, and and with vampires in general, is just this kind of psychological issues that we run into with that. The having to be prepared for things like your relatives not being alive anymore. And that could be anywhere from your grandparents to your wife to your children to your spouse, whatever, however you look at it. And I think that specifically with Destiny, one of the unique things that we can look at with our memory being gone,
Yep.
it's very much it kind of is in the same way, I guess, forward shifting us into that mindset. That way we don't have to overcome the moral dilemma that we'll say a vampire would have to go through when it's first doing that transition into immortality of overcoming his humanity. We can be an extremely distant.
In a way, it's actually a blessing.
Really
Is, but at the
Yes.
same time, we still have issues with it as well.
Oh, definitely.
I posted
I mean,
I posted that tweet the other day, the Harvey Dent quote.
mhm.
The
If we
you
don't, if
either
we either
die-
die a hero or live long enough to become a villain, yeah.
Correct. And that's something
Watching
that
a baby shovelhead Sabat vampire going back through life, and then the poor ghost is just bringing it back. And Blue knows exactly what I'm talking about with this part.
What?
the-
No, don't do
Smack the
it.
shovel! Smack the
Don't do
shovelhead!
Right.
Oh,
But
God.
Green's just gonna ignore us.
of
That's okay.
our- I'm just trying to segue back into the
Wrangle it.
actual topic a bit. Besides the immortality, and I just want to, this is the introduction episode, what concepts that we would consider a typical concept, the draining of life force or consumption of life force, or however you
So-
want to put it, or if there's some.
So the easiest way to do that, to kind of connect it to Destiny in that regard, would be look at the concept of light as the life force. So if you look at light as, I often refer to it as the anima of the Destiny universe, which is a very Aristotelian model concept. So anima is literally the animating force, which is, I mean, it's literally the life force, but it's called anima, and it's because it's an animating spiritual force. Everything has it. Everything has anima in the Aristotelian model. It's very different than
Gaia
nous.
concept.
Yeah, it's very different than nous, which is the concept of a mind. But anima is like a spirit, not the soul. So if you look at light as if it's a form of anima, then it makes the jump to see Hive as vampiric a lot easier, because they are literally consuming light to survive. They have to. Like, if they don't consume light, they will die.
The
And-
worm.
Yeah, well, and it's not just the worm, it's also, in a way, themselves, because remember, they're the krill. It's actually, I would argue, it's actually almost where they can get their long lives from, because they are literally supplementing their own life force with the stolen life force of whatever they're stealing light from. And you have to steal light, because, again, it's anima. It's in everything. So it's not like you can just be like, oh, well, I mean, I guess you could technically go eat a lot of plants, but it's going to take a lot of plants.
A lot of time.
But like, and that's where, like, when you start talking about vampirism, that's where my brain always immediately jumps to, is the Hive are very much along the lines of the Eastern concept of the soul. Like they're literally siphoning the
Right.
soul.
But in some respects, now granted, the Hive are using it to sustain themselves,
Mhm.
but there are other our own guardians, for
Oh,
example.
sure.
We don't need it to sustain necessarily, but
We're using it
every
as a
time we
go-go
kill an
juice.
enemy and a mode of light pops out,
Yep.
we're consuming that light energy from the enemies themselves. So
Well,
we're
so
vampiric. We're just not.
we have a vampiric mechanism, but we are not vampiric in so far as that's not what is necessarily sustaining us. I still hold to the fact that guardians are more liches than vampires, mostly because of the ghost concept is much more akin to a phylactery than, whereas your Hive are much more akin to the traditional concept of they are literally siphoning light into themselves to survive. We are not siphoning light into ourselves as much as we are theoretically siphoning light into a offshoot of our self, which is the Traveler. Because again,
Hive
guardians.
Guardians are ghouls and regents.
Yeah, well, and I mean, again, liches or even revenants, if you really want to like kind of split hairs, because we are feeding. If we are feeding light to anything, and that's a big if, because I don't even know if that's necessarily true, it's to the Traveler, it's not to us.
No.
Hmm?
Learn
What was
not to us.
we use the Traveler's Light to augment our paracausal capabilities. When we pick up light, we are literally holding it as a reserve and then immediately expending it back into the world. So whereas with a vampire, they are literally consuming it. We're not consuming the light. We are turning it into a weapon through the use of basically a
It's
transitor.
the law of conservation.
Yeah. Whereas a vampire, it's like they're actually you would actually have consumption. Like when you talk about like sanguines and stuff like that, they are literally consuming the life force to imbue it into themselves. Which is why, again, I hesitate to say that guardians are they are vampiric. They have a vampiric model, but I don't hold that they are vampires
It's
or
like a
vampires.
trope, the vampire trope-esque.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know if
Okay.
any of that makes sense.
It
So, like-
does to an extent. So with me,
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, like, with another really good way of looking at it is, like, when you talk about, like, the Renfield syndrome, which is clinical vampirism, which is an actual psychological disorder. Renfield is a character from Dracula, and his obsession was with feeding one animal to another, then to that animal to another, to build up the life force within that animal to then become a more worthy vessel for his lord, which was Dracula. So, like, his entire thing was basically
the hive. And
he was turdunking life forces into each other, basically. And it was really, he started with flies, and then he went to spiders, then he went to birds, then he went to cats, and then he went to, I think he eventually ate the cat. I think the cat's where he stopped, if I remember correctly. But like his whole thing was the consumption. And again, that's the big difference, is what is happening with the force. Like, so with the orbs of light, again, we are using a vampiric mechanism, but we're not actually consuming that, because, you know, once we get enough supercharged juice, we just go pop pop and throw it back into the world with the shape of a, you know, whether that's blade barrage or the, you know, Mobius quiver or whatever. You're completely turning it back and making that loop into a pseudo natural. I mean, it's a supernatural, but it's not an abnormal thing.
I actually think there's a couple of examples that where I would say it's hard not to see it as consumption. Specifically, and as much as as it pains me to admit this, warlocks. When it comes to devour warlocks,
Yeah, but they devour their own grenades.
they
but there's
do.
also the punch one where you devour the energy of the other person,
Correct.
where you gain health with it.
You gain health from killing other guardians with, and yes, you can consume your own grenade to start the devour effect, but any kills that you make after that point are continually feeding you and rebuilding your health and a shield. So yes, I can see where energy that's getting pushed out. I
haven't played Warlock, so that's
fine.
That's a really interesting too, because then that would throw difference. Okay.
So there's a few different, and one of the things that while I was researching all of this, the warlocks have a pretty dark side to them, especially void walkers.
Yeah.
But there's actually a reference specifically to what I would say, other than the Karnstein gauntlets, which are definitely referencing vampires. Which, by the way, excellent job.
That was a fun one to do.
I can tell. But
I did research and I was like, there's so much that I'm gonna get in trouble for. Because Carmilla is not a PG-13 book.
No, it's okay. We're all adults here. So the one exotic that I latched onto was Sanguine, and it's basically a warlock trench coat that has this metal backpack on it that's filled with blood. It looks like, and the whole the whole thing about it, if you're reading the lore for it, talks about how when you were mortal, your power lay in blood, but now as as you have become a guardian, there's a new power coursing through your veins, and the blood calls to you. Are you strong enough? So it's like there's and there's there there's that. And there's also the idea of the Night Stalkers having true sight that they can use. That reminded me of basically somewhat echolocation. I guess you could kind of tie in with the whole bat thing of vampires, but also having the scent of blood on the air and being able to track something via that.
Yeah, because I always viewed the Night Stalker's ability to track based off their sensitivity to the light. Like they would hunt because and which would same difference at that point.
Yep. But yeah, it's the Devour Warlocks were definitely the ones that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Green.
I was just going to say the chat was mentioning the Awoken and how the possibility the Awoken have aspects that are slightly on that same vampires as well. Even the power source themselves, they play with both the light and dark within any of their the magics that they're doing. So there's aspects, because there are, forgive me if I'm wrong, aren't there vampires that quote unquote cast spells or have aspects of hypnosis? I know is one of the things that is kind of a TV trope or a movie trope.
Yeah,
but
it's a trope. So like with a lot of times, like especially with like Dracula in particular, Dracula was it's always, it cracks me up when you see Dracula in modern retellings because they always make him like really suave, and I'm like, that's not Dracula. Dracula was butt ass ugly, and he was a warrior. Like he was based off of Vlad the Impaler. Like
Vlad.
Vlad Tepes, like he and there's a fascinating connection between the two of those and like the history of that character, but like he was never like a courtier. Like he was that's not how he enthralled people. He enthralled people because of his monstrous power. Like he literally, like it's one of the very first things you see within Dracula is when he is introduced to Jonathan as the main character, or one of the main characters. Sorry, Jonathan calls out the fact that Vlad is not really pleasant to look at, but he is enthralled to him because he just exudes physical power. Like he just has this overwhelming sense of raw, not I'm going to use charisma, but it's not the attractive charisma. It's a charisma derived out of like this animal, like just fury.
Yeah.
You are terrified of him. You do what he says because you are petrified that if you don't do what he says, he's going to break you in half. And looking in the description, and even when Dracula is presented as coming to England, you see that again. Like he is a powerful figure. Carmilla is vastly different. Carmilla is much more a feminine fatale. And that was her point. Like that was the point of her. But even she had that overpowering sense of that. I want to say it's magnetism, but it's really not. It's like this overpowering sense.
So would you compare Carmilla to Mara in some respects? Like would they be counterpoints to each other?
I would. So yes, but not in a negative way. Like Carmilla's figure, like as just like a stereotypical trope, is very much like Mara's figure. Now, Carmilla was in the story of Carmilla, her entire point was the seduction and consumption of Laura. Which is, we only see a snippet of Carmilla's existence. So like within the whole mythos of that, there's a lot of arguing there. Also the history of what Carmilla was based. But anyways, as far as like that snippet, yes, I would definitely consider Carmilla, or I would definitely consider Mara to be akin to a Carmilla figure. as far as that charisma standpoint. Not
How are we
going to
doing
go
on time?
into the relationships that Mara has that also coincide with Carmilla.
I figured we'd wait until the advanced
I
episode
mean-
to dive into that aspect.
Well, and actually that actually didn't even cross my mind until I literally was saying that. But like, I mean, the power and the charisma of Mara's character is definitely along the lines of a Carmilla figure, whereas like we don't like. I mean, maybe the closest to a Dracula would be Oryx. Like, I mean, because it's just that sheer sense of power. Like, it's not that you're physically attracted to him. You're drawn to it because it's like it's like a moth to a flame. It's
It's
it's going to kill you, but you can't help but go towards it.
Teacher crush. You know that when
Yeah.
teachers are in that powerful position, you have the students that inevitably end up
Mhm,
attracted to them. It's that same thing, but in a more malicious.
Yeah,
predatory
yeah.
way.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and even Mara could be predatorial in her own way.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you take that how you will. I'm not going to comment on.
Well then.
There's a lot of different ways you could take that, and I'm just going to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Nod and smile. Nod and smile.
Nod and smile. Nod and smile, boys. Nod and smile. But I think that's actually probably a good place to start wrapping up. I feel like I've talked more than I thought I was going to talk. I'll be honest.
Good.
Surprise.
So
I was expecting it to be about this, so we're gonna get
yeah,
into
I mean, to be fair,
everything. It's you.
Shots
so
fired.
I got to set it up for her. Like, it's just like, here, make fun of me, go.
No, so I mean, I knew that's part of the reason I picked this topic for everybody who's involved with the show to do, because I know that you have such a background in it, and Raz has a background in it, and Wykid and I can just kind of be the peanut gallery, asking questions and putting input in everything.
I'm just sitting
But,
here ignoring the fact my tattoo's itching. Like, just don't even start talking White Wolf. Don't even start, because both of us will never shut up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. If we start down that, yeah. No.
There is
I
no
will-
coming back.
Kind of as a
Man.
teaser for the advanced episode, I want to go into more of what we kind of done this episode, where we've talked about how the vampire tropes or the aspects of the vampire have related back to some of the things we see in Destiny, with not only the Void warlocks and hunters, but the Awoken and Hive. And I want to dive into the Vex as well and clarify whether or not the Vex are on that, or even possibly get into the real names of the various myths and their connections of like what they most closely relate to in Destiny. So getting
Mhm.
into more of like the energy vamps and the Eastern. So that's where I want to go.
Take
Cool.
me with you.
So you shout outs real quick for the intro session.
Yeah. I'll start. Shout out to Sleep Coffee and having people to work for that are really great and have some awesome pets. I've been living at a different house for the last week, which has been really weird, but also awesome. So shout out to not creepy people to house sit for. Wykid. It's a weird one. I'm sorry. I don't know.
What about you, Wykid?
I do have one random shout out. This person is not going to be mentioned, but by name. But there's a certain individual that I know is kind of struggling with the direction right now, and I just want to point out to them that sometimes it's better to live a life in wonder than it is to know the absolute facts.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sometimes I know in the lore community, we get wrapped around the axle about knowing the exact explanations or trying to figure out exactly what things mean. And we lose sight of some of the joy really that comes in reading the lore and just not knowing and being okay with that and understanding that sometimes that's a really beautiful thing. So to that individual, again, lots of love to them, and just remember not to lose sight of the wonder in the lore.
Good stuff. And Raz, what about you?
Well, some people know what my current situation is. So my shout out is more of a very personal toast to my oncology team. The past couple months have been very trying on my patience, my sanity, and I could not be more thankful for the amount of care and respect some people take to looking out for other people when you think you're at rock bottom. I've gone through a lot of stuff right now, and I've never felt more alive right now because of these people that are there getting me through stuff. So at this point right now, it's cheers to week 4. One more to go.
Awesome. We're glad to hear that as well. I don't really have a shout out this week other than, hey, congratulations, you survived another week, because that's pretty much where my brain is right now. It's just work. Work has been work. But seriously, again, thank you for taking the time to listen. And remember, until next time, with wisdom we conquer. Stand strong, stand tall, and keep exploring. Right.
Small break, and I need to go to the restroom, so I will be right back.
I gotta go check on the better half since she is sick, so I'll be right back as well.
Yay! Wait.
Didn't set it on fire yet.
Raz, you know what this means?
What?
We have control of the show.
Which way do we go? Where are we going? Wait, are you driving? We are so fucked if you're driving.
Nobody's driving, Chet. It's ours now.
Oh god. The last time this happened, Shinanese blew shit up on the Tangle Shore. So maybe we shouldn't do this right now.
It's okay. Hand me the wheel. I've been driving.
No, so am I. The hell? No, wait. We're gonna rock paper scissors this shit. Like, what are we doing?
We're gonna rock paper scissors. If we're rock paper scisoring, who's got their hands on the? Requires 2 hands to properly rock paper scissors.
I don't know.
Sexy Fox, second episode.
Oh, dang it, she's back.
Damn.
Nah.
No.
Why?
I wanted cheese fries.
I want cheese tots. God.
See,
I want the fucking tots.
Oh, the fucking tots.
Oh my god.
Oh no, there is a
No,
place.
yeah. Tell you what, I'll lend you some of my freaking curly fries that I have.
No,
Arby's curly fries are the best. Fight me.
No, I will fucking fight you. Okay, Brighton Hot Shop, where I'm staying for the thing each week. Oh my god, the chili cheese dogs and chili cheese fries. No, you don't.
Okay, so Raz, you missed this part. I was talking to Green earlier. So asking Kelly, I was like, "Hey, where do you want to go for Valentine's Day? What do you want to?" And she's like, "I really want some Arby's." I'm thinking,
I love her so much.
Cool.
Okay.
My wallet thanks you. This is great. So we go to Arby's. She pulls out these coupons and she's just like, "Okay, I'm gonna get these sliders." It's like, okay, no problem. So get the meals. We got all 5 of us paid for under $20 because she got the coupons and everything. I was like, oh, cool. And the lady at the cash register goes, "Are you sure you want all 8 sliders?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I want all 8 sliders because it was buy one get one free."
Oh God. Okay.
I go to pick up the tray, and what it doesn't clarify is that each one of these sliders comes with a box of curly fries.
Mm-hmm.
So in one tray, there's mine, the kids' sandwiches, and our meals,
Oh,
and then
God.
on 2 other trays are Kelly's sliders and all
All the
of the
fries.
assortment of fries that she eats. So we got one of the big Arby's bags to bring home, and half of it's just nothing but curly fries. And I'm like, oh my God, eating curly fries for breakfast in the morning.
I want fries now. Fine. Damn it. God, we really are like, you are so screwed.
She's a
I
titan. She
mean-
can handle it.
She's yeah, can you just imagine like her? I want Arby's. I want curly fries now. Let's go get curly fries.
She could totally handle it.
And just go get a bunch of chili. And make chili cheese Arby's curly fries.
Just I don't know the
My
Arby's
list
fries. I always
is-
use the horsey sauce on them. It's amazing.
Right, Black Flag? That is a lot of Arby's.
I want these now.
Mhm.
Crap.
Me personally, I had to get because ever since they started carrying it, I got the Euro.
Oh
'Cause
yes,
their Euro is actually pretty
the
freaking good. I
traditional
like it.
Greek one is so
Mhm.
good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh crap!
As if we still got to food somehow, even
How
though
do we
I
not get to food though? I mean,
don't
this is
know.
us.
Raz is pretty much.
This is
stuck on
true.
lunch mode.
I have been on so many stupid friggin' steroids because of this treatment. Okay, food is life right now,
I mean,
and it sucks.
vampire.
I am a vampire. I'm gonna admit I'm a vampire. I don't care.
You could
Everything is food.
just waiting for blue and everything. If you could pick any type of vampire to be, what kind would you be?
What kind would I be? I mean, do we have options here? I mean, do I get to?
I mean, would you want to be a sanguine, or would you want to do more energy, or would you? I don't know, because I have it in my head because I have pop culture
Mm-hmm.
mythology and everything is my background. And
Mhm.
so in the Jim Butcher books, there's 3 types of vampires. There's the Dracula kind of vampire where they're like, there's a lot of magic involved with it, but they're sanguinites. And if they don't, it's backwards in some ways, which is really stupid. But if they don't consume blood, they tend to do a lot more damage magically. And then you have the red court, which is all the sanguines. And then you have the white court, which are the energy ones who are also incubus,
Incubus,
male
succubus type.
versions. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
If you could be
Hmm.
Black Flag wants to be a Twilight vampire. You want to
need to
glitter
get
in
out.
sunlight.
Okay, there's
Like,
literally a song written that is called "Real Vampires Don't Sparkle." I swear to God, I will find the link and you will get out.
Hot, immortal, and they sparkle. Black Flag wants to be
You-
glitterified. You could
You
sparkle
can take
to
your
and spend
craft
20
herpes
minutes
and
in
go
a
back to your right now.
garden again. Just go spend some time in a kindergarten classroom and you'll sparkle too.
No.
We'll just bedazzle your freaking denim jacket. You'll be
Real
fine.
vampires don't sparkle, damn it. That's it. I'm finding that song.
Who would you pick? Or what would you pick? What kind of vampire would you want to be?
I honestly, it would be a spin-off of what, the Raziel one that I created. I mean, he's pretty much sanguinary base, but there was a very heavy balance of magic use as well. I mean, there was a trait that the vampires had. They only had a very specific magic on the sim that we played at that they could only access, which was basically it paired with White Wolf 2 in a way. But basic blood magic. You could do everything from figuring out illnesses, blood type. Oh God, there were so many things. But some of the dumb caveats of it was you had to taste it, which I mean, okay, that makes sense. I mean, there's other aspects you can do, like thaumaturgy. You taste it so much in that version of White Wolf, but the other one, but there's, I don't know. I'm like a 50-50 on it because, the whole act of consuming what's trying to oppress you or trying to overtake you. I mean, Diablerie is just sexy as hell in White Wolf. Period. You wanna become a more powerful vampire, you go and drain another one. You lower your generation, you consume more power and more possibilities, and you consume their knowledge. You inherit their ghouls, you inherit all these memories and knowledge from it. So I think I'd honestly go that way.
Here's a question for you on that front.
Mhm.
The older the vampire is it which is kind of that common idea, is it because of how much life force they've consumed over the years, or is it because of they are more efficient at extracting that life force?
Well, if you're going from the White Wolf side of it, you're going by different generation. So like you've got your thin bloods like up 12, 13, 14 generation. At that point, you're like damn fear level and you are so thin blooded, nothing exists at that. And then you start progressing down to the lower generations, which is closer to the seat of the beginning, like of Cain and Lilith and that whole story. So the lower the generation is, the better off you are. You have a larger way of retaining information and knowledge, the abilities to do different disciplines or magical paths, depending on which clan or bloodline you came from. So the older you became, honestly, the better you. But the problem is, the older you were, you also basically painted a target on you because you are literally a walking bastion of life and existence.
Wealth.
You are walking wealth.
Mhm.
So you're just asking for somebody to come up and just diablerize you, and that's the end of it. Which was fun.
Yeah.
Hunt a couple people, especially when you're running a campaign. But yeah, like
I'm thoroughly confused. Because I had no experience with a role-playing game like that at all at that point.
it's
I was a girl who had
so
never seen one.
intense.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff alone in just the VTM one. And that's just the core book. You start getting into all the supplemental ones and well, here's the Camarilla, here's the Sabbat, here's the Independence, here's the Anarchs, here's all these additional bloodlines and offshoot ones that suddenly start cropping up. And then here's a new story arc that there's a thin-blooded thing and it's the end of the world prophecies, and look out for like the crescent moon mark of Lilith because she's going to kill us all and all this shit. It becomes so baffling to keep up with.
You mentioned Cain and full story, right? That was one of the things you mentioned a little bit ago. How does that tie into all of it? Is it similar to, I'm trying to remember, there was a movie who pulled on that storyline where it talks about going all the way back and the bloodlines all the way back to the Cain and Abel story. What was it?
Yeah, there's okay. Pens, you might need to help me out on the. You have the traditional Cain and Abel story, the biblical sense of it, okay? So Cain, well, you have Lilith too. So you have the Nodus story, which is everything based around Cain. You have the Bahari, which is the stuff with Lilith. So there's the theory that Lilith was the first one. She argued with the Elohim. And the same sense with the Sumerian and Mesopotamian and the Kabbalic lore, where she looked at herself as completely equal to God and the upper Elohim and the upper echelon. So in White Wolf, she decided to go romp around with whoever the hell was upstairs at the time and said, okay, well, I'm equal now. So we're going to do all this stuff. And then she basically got cast out into the whole Midnight Garden, starts creating her own line of the spinfoil theory that the Neverborn were created by Lilith, basically like Leviathan level nightmare.
Book of Nod.
book. The hell with Nod. We are not going in there. We're not going to Nod. We're going to Revelations of the Dark Mother, and you're going to go stay over there because I can tell exactly what you. You stay over there.
Just want to listen to you two go back and forth at this point.
No.
I have my popcorn, so I'm good.
Yeah, but you have the Cain and Lilith story, and it's very similar to what exists in the biblical levels of it with White Wolf. They just, they made a few unique adjustments for lackluster terms.
Mm-hmm. Artistic,
Yeah.
or what is it? Artistic
Artistic
license.
Liberty.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, Lilith is far better. I'm sorry.
The Lilith story was interesting. Cain in the Book of Nod was just it's interesting in the twists that they kind of present.
And Cain got bitch slapped by Lilith.
Oh yes, he did.
Because he ran his damn mouth and he got smacked the hell out of the damn garden. That boy literally got whipped out of that damn garden. She's like, get the hell out of here right now.
Is Lilith still within that story, still in the garden, or did she? I just a story of Lilith.
Does that ever get answered?
Not technically. Well, there's the whole Neverborn thing that she's still lurking, and there's a theory.
Well, because they also redesigned everything too, didn't they?
Well, we don't talk about Requiem and all that shit. Cool. But there was supposedly a theory that she's lurking in like the Maelstrom with the Wraith and the Black Tower and all that other stuff with Sharon and all of them. And I'm not even going there on that one because the spin foil on that is there's not enough Reynolds wrap for that shit. There ain't enough for that shit.
Well, that's like White Wolf when you start getting into like the conspiracy theory sections. It's like oh man, you good luck.
Lilith birthed the Neverborn, and this is why everything broke.
Oh god.
All right, you good?
Was it?
What's up?
Yeah, I'm good. I was just going to ask another question that was going to send us on another line of thought.
Careful.
I know. Underworld did the whole. I want to say it was Underworld. Did the story, or Blade did, one of the two, where it was Judas being hung from the tree and everything that converted. It's just there's so many different little mythologies and stories that have come out of it. I don't know what was created by Hollywood and what was
so
part of the original list.
that entire thing was like no. Yeah, that I think that was entirely a trope created by Hollywood. And that was like, because like there's a lot of things that have been attributed to like Judas and like the silver and all this.
Oh, Dracula 2000, that was it.
That's what it was. I was like,
it took
wasn't
me a second.
Yeah, it wasn't, which was actually not a terrible movie except for that one part.
Except for the one part that we don't, but it wasn't bad, but it wasn't.
But yeah, like that was their, because they used that to be like, that's why they don't like silver. And it's like, what? That's not why they don't like silver. Silver is there's a medical reason why that.
Right.
They're like there's so much more interesting bins
Sterile.
in that. Yeah, I mean, well, and that's why vampires don't show up in mirrors, is because mirrors were originally silver backed. No, it was silver. It was a pane of silver with glass laid over it.
Now it's silver nitrate.
Which is an argument within the strain as to why vampires can show up in modern mirrors, which was a fascinating argument by Del Toro, because the strain as a trilogy is basically a modern day retelling of Dracula from a parasitic standpoint. It's
interesting.
Oh gosh, it's that trilogy is such an interesting read. If you read it like step in step with Dracula, it's a retelling of Dracula with the understanding of like parasites that we have today. Same concept, same exact concept. Dracula, like the whole thing of the strain itself is the scene of Dracula coming to England. That's the entire book. is Dracula's arrival in England. It's Dracula coming to America. Like, I mean, it's like symbols are, it was really well done. But then, like, the whole explanation of the hunters in the strain, the old guy, the old Jewish guy, I love him. But he explains, like, all this stuff about silver, and he's like, yeah, that's why you can't trust modern mirrors. And because he has, like, his whole house is, like, all these old stuff and all this stuff, because he's the antiques dealer. And that's the reason he's an antiques dealer, is because that's how he gets his hands on all this stuff that he uses to hunt vampires. Or Strigoi, I think is what he referred. Strigoi. Oh gosh, I love that retelling. Actually, it's one of my favorite retellings. Probably because it doesn't romanticize the vampire.
Yeah.
It's very faithful to, like, the original mythos of, no, these things will fucking eat you. They will rip you apart and eat you.
They're going to come
It's the
back.
loss of humanity.
Yeah. Oh, well, and with the strain, it's entire. I mean, there's some pretty graphic scenes in which, yes, humanity is literally shed. I mean, it's well done, but yeah, I need to get back. I need to watch I watched the first season. I never finished the second, though. Hey, I'm dead again. Most of the vampire connections are, if you go back and read, like, especially the latter half of Dracula, it's almost verbatim from the point that Dracula lands on the shores of England. Read the chapter or two before that. That's pretty much the first book, like almost verbatim with more modern twist to it. But yes, before I get down that tangent, I'm gonna start the second episode because my better half is sick and I need to be available for that. So, you guys good to go?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right. Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on February 14th, 2020, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, I want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. This week's episodes are going to be focused around exploring vampirism in Destiny. This particular episode is going to be this particular episode will serve as what we have come to call the advanced session of the week's exploration. Congratulations to those who signed up for a deeper dive and who stuck with me through that terrible introduction. Before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have left with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86.
I don't have anything prepared, so it's just Green Eyed Music Lover.
Oh, yes. She is still with us, though.
Damn, I've survived.
And last but definitely not least, in the hot seat as guest co-host, we have our good friends Raz and Wykid. Guys, you still with us? Is the coffee still flowing?
The coffee is still flowing.
There's liquid in me, but it's not coffee.
Synchronization happening.
I'm sorry, I chewed.
Chew.
I chewed.
Well, I know Green had hopes to focus us in on some specific examples, so enough with my introductory chatter. Let's just jump right into it. So, Green,
Bring it.
where do you want us to go first?
Want us to start with the Vex, because we talked about the Hive in the introduction episode, at least in a very generalized sense, and I know we're probably going to get back to them because they're the biggest example in some respects, but I want to go into the Vex in particular because we have a few notions of the Vex draining the light from Saint 14, and there's aspects of the Radioloria as well that show up in the hallucinations and whatnot. So I kind of want to dive into that in particular. From anyone?
I mean,
Go
for it, Wykid.
Yes,
No, go for it, Wykid, because I'm gonna. I am literally like, I have an idea, but it's not like a really strong one. So Wykid, go for it.
Not forming at all.
Well, okay, because I'm still trying to figure. And I was. God. Green, can you give me a?
So I would venture to say that the Vex aren't necessarily vampiric because they create a machine. They create the was a hive mind, or not a hive
a
mind,
martyr
but
mind.
mind to siphon Saint.
Yeah, they created the martyr mind to do that, and it took them. They created an artificial, like, it's basically an IV drip, and they're trying to exsanguinate him, but they're not. Like, it's like saying that a doctor who's bleeding somebody is a vampire. It's not really that wire is not really connecting in my brain,
Right?
Like,
So
because it's I wouldn't consider the Vex vampiric.
I will say there's a couple of different things about it that could be, I guess, contributed to being vampiric behaviors. Like, because when I specifically with the Saint 14 incident, with them draining his light, one of the things that was about they were trying to they were keying into the frequency of his light.
It was very mechanical. It wasn't.
It was mechanical, but at the same time, it goes back to that concept of eating your enemy's flesh to be able to adapt their strengths. In the same kind of way, I would see the Vex as kind of using his light to attune their own capabilities so that they could defeat him. So that using that same kind of concept of taking one's strength and making it their weakness because you're using it against them. But that would be.
Yeah, but is that vampiric?
Instance, I don't.
Like, I mean, that's more like blood magic than.
Yeah.
I mean, that's even a stretch, to be honest. That's not really. I mean, I don't. That's like. I mean, I can see that being like considered like a shamanistic ritual if you really want to stretch the magic reference. But like,
because they're not really doing anything like,
because like, again,
extend their existence.
Yeah, they're not augmenting their strength with it. They're literally weakening him. They're if anything, they're vampire hunters, which is an also fascinating twist if you really want to think about it. Because, I mean, they are weakening. They're the good guys. Have that fun fact bouncing around in your head. Great. We're the bad guys. But like, yeah, I can't. Like, every example of Vex siphoning light it's in regards to weakening something, not in regards to strengthening themselves.
Okay. So what about? So I want to I'm going to shift gears a bit. Topics that were brought to my attention through different community members throughout the week. So don't think this is just me being random. The shadows.
You're totally random.
Totally random. The shadows of Yore.
So
they're not necessarily vampiric in some respects, but at the same time, they're also dealing in some darker magics of things.
I would argue that there could be a case made that they might be vampiric, depending upon how deep into the hive rituals that are taught and learned about within that community, just how far they delve into it, because that's something that the hive does, is feed on the light. Right. It's something that the Taken do. So depending on...
Well, and they also use light to purify their weapons.
Correct.
I mean, so which is more akin to bloodletting than anything, but...
Yes. No, I guess one of the reason I didn't go into the weapons part is because in those instances, I almost consider the weapons themselves more vampiric than the people who are using them.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. Well, and that's true. But I mean, if you're going to look at the weaponsmithing of the shadows, that's more of like quenching the blade in blood than actually imbuing blood.
Vampiric is all hell.
Well, okay, right. But if the weapon, if you're going to ignore the fact that the weapon has a degree of sentience, which, I mean, let's just pretend it's a normal...
Listen, projectile thorns. You were casting freaking stakes at people. Okay,
You're
this thing is
casting
as
magic
dark as
missile at the
hell.
darkness, okay? You cast magic missile at the darkness. That's how you do it. Is it darkness? I cast magic missile at it.
Oh my
Magic,
god.
oh my gosh,
Are there
magic
girls
missile at the
there?
darkness made of. Oh my gosh, really that one
This is why we can't have nice things.
was grafted from what was it, the wizard
Zior.
that piece, yeah.
And
was
it wasn't.
grafted
It
onto
actually. It wasn't grafted from the wizard. It was grafted from her betrothed.
Well, the knight,
Yeah.
but
Well, but okay. So,
That-
anyways, the shadows, man. I can see like. I can see them.
Like I said, I think
I can see
sorry.
it maybe, but like to me, it's almost more of like again, it's almost more of what is it? Thermatology or what is the word?
Thaumaturgy.
Thank you.
Thaumaturgy. You're welcome.
It's more of that, or maybe even no, it's not really necromancy because they're not really doing that, but like they're because they're literally unmaking themselves to remake themselves. I mean, they are consuming and with your the problem with your also is that I mean your would be close to a vampire, if not a vampire. Because we have an instance of him literally consuming the light of a random passerby in lore. Like, I mean, we have a conversation where he calls out the fact that, oh, you're not a guardian, but you still have a spark of light, and nom nom nom. I'm gonna nom you. That's
would
a
you
vampire.
consider that right?
That's a vampire.
But would you consider that more like the energy vamp type thing? Rather, I mean, there's no group in Destiny because of the way that the game is made, where there's not any blood per se. That there's not going to be anybody sanguinating anyone else. So we're not necessarily going to have that in Destiny, or do we?
I would argue. I would argue that we do. It's just not blood.
Light.
I mean, the Hive are again. Yeah, I know we said we were coming back to him. Well, the Hive. I mean, Omar.
Yep.
Omar was literally hung up, and his light was filleted off him and fed to the Hivelings. I guess you would call them. I don't. Is Hiveling what they refer? I call them Hivelings. They're baby hives. Anyways.
Yeah. I don't, with the shadows though. So,
I don't know.
In all honesty, I think they are. I think that they absolutely are, because the rituals that were involved in creating just the thorn itself, thinking about what we did in order to make our thorn, not the one that Yor was using, obviously, because we find that with Shin later on, but just between the lessons that we learned from the one that was from the books written by
Vale.
I'm like, well, it wasn't written by Vale.
Tevin.
Tevin. Just the description that he goes into as far as the lessons that Yor was passing down from the ship and their translations of it. Granted, it was like 2 or 3 times removed as far as, the exactness of the information. Like, we went along and followed their path to the weaponsmith, or to the Hive Weapons of Sorrow weaponsmith that they have. And along the way, we found dead guardians, and we were tracking this Hive weaponsmith for the Weapons of Sorrow. Now, one of the things I found interesting about the Weapons of Sorrow in particular is that they're weapons that are used by human beings. and I've got my own whole list of theories and my own spinful as far as the Weapons of Sorrow themselves and how Last Word fits in with. But with the Shadows of Yor themselves, part of what they had to do, they had to be willing to make some moral sacrifices. I don't think it's beyond them to have gotten to the point where they were consuming other guardians. It's more of being very picky about which guardians they kill and consuming them.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, personally, I view Weapons of Sorrow as Trojan horses, but I mean,
a little bit of beer.
Well, I just because again going back to what Wykid said, they're only used by guardians really, and
Yeah.
they tend to corrupt the guardians that they are being used by.
Well, I don't necessarily think it's that they're corrupting the guardians. I think it's a manifestation of corruption.
Oh, that I mean,
Because
well,
we-
yeah, that's true too. Yeah, but it's the insidiousness of how
Oh, yeah.
they are. That's what I mean by a Trojan horse. Is it's something that that's like, hey, it's a weapon, and we all know how guardians are with weapons. They're like, we're gonna do whatever it takes to get this gun, and it's like,
Whisper.
are you? Yes, yes, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. But, okay.
Here's the question, though, when it comes to Whisper in particular. You mentioned Whisper, and chat mentioned Touch of Malice. Neither of those, it's Touch of Malice. It was hurting the user.
Yeah, but see, I beg the question:
To hurt
were those weapons of sorrow though?
No, they're not necessarily.
okay,
but
sorry.
I'm
Yeah.
shifting a little bit
Got
because
it,
chat
got it,
brought
got
it up. And
Yeah.
Whisper doesn't hurt you when you shoot it, right? It was only Touch of
No,
Malice that had
Only
that
Touch of
mechanic.
Malice does that.
No, Whisper just talks to you a lot.
Its own.
What happens when
creepy
you?
little whisper.
Yeah,
Happy creepy whispers.
It's what happens when you carry a worm god in your back pocket.
That's fine.
But the Touch of Malice, isn't
It's
that almost like a
fine.
reverse?
I'm sorry.
Touch of Malice was basically Oryx's insurance plan.
Right, I realize that like the major concept of the gun is it's Oryx's essence within the gun itself, but the
Mhm.
pulling energy from you is almost a reversal of the actual vampire story. The gun itself is vampiric to you.
See, I
Would
guess
be
I
the-
always took Touch of Malice to be like, if anything, a manifestation of the sword logic.
Mhm.
I didn't, which I mean, like sword logic, I don't view as vampiric. I view that as Darwinism on steroids.
Mhm.
Like the bad kind. I don't know. I'll be blunt. I never really played with Touch of Malice, so I don't know as far as
I
like
will
game mechanics what it does.
So
I know it makes quack noises. Thanks, Justin.
Kid, do you wanna
Yeah.
talk
So
about that?
So with Touch of Malice, essentially what ends up happening is when you're firing it, you get so many rounds of actually just free firing the weapon before the weapon actually starts to consume you. It'll actually damage you unless you're getting kills on something else. So whenever you start getting kills against other players, it replenishes your health, and then the weapon will slowly start eating down your health again. So that's where
The
whole
reason
concept of
why
sword
it's-
logic comes in. Go ahead. Sorry.
And your health is it allows you to not have to reload.
Mhm.
It's your free reload, which is why in the Kingsfall raid, people would stand in a well, which would automatically regenerate your health, and just
Quack, 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 quack,
exactly.
quack, quack.
Such a Malice would never run out of ammo because you had never ran out of health.
And you also get bonus damage on the rounds that go past the magazine, correct? Or on the last
Yeah,
magazine?
there was
Believe so.
something. Yeah, there was something that they got additional DPS for. All I know is that when you have a fire
really-
team of 5 things going quack, 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 it's hilarious.
It is pretty funny, but
it
like
is.
Black Flag has a good description. It's a symbiotic relationship where if you kill fast enough with the gun, it won't kill you.
Mm, okay.
Similar terms.
Mm-hmm.
So similar to a worm pack then.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah,
Symbiotic / parasitic relationship.
those always work out in the end.
In some ways, except for we can put the gun down.
Yeah.
So-
We
yeah, we
don't
can
have.
actually because the
we
tower got
don't-
destroyed.
Yeah, but did the gun get destroyed?
Talk about that.
Banshee's got it hiding in a cage somewhere.
Banshee, I'm more worried about the Cryptarchs.
Oh God.
Tarks with Touch of Malice. That would be amusing.
Well, they have the vault that anyways, that's a whole different theory.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess going back to shadows. Is that where we were? Shadows.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about the shadows.
I don't know. When I hear vampire in Destiny, I'll be honest, my brain jumps to Hive and kind of stops there. Like I can see Guardians as light, like pseudo vampires, like Damphirs, but
That's a terrifying thought.
but I mean, right? They kind of are. If we're gonna,
Yeah.
I mean, they kind of are.
I mean, I'm not entirely.
Okay,
So
explain
sorry.
why for the people who
Damn-
never played
so-
White Wolf.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm about to
Damphire's
say-
not. I don't think Damphire's
It's
white.
not even just. It's not even just White Wolf. It
I was like, were
literally
Damphirs
is-
even
yeah.
in White Wolf?
Yeah.
Were they? Okay. I mean, so Damphirs are.
You get to
they're-
13, 14 generation, and then the Damphirs show up.
Oh, okay.
Thin
okay.
Blood, the End Times, the
Yeah.
Crescent Mark Lilith. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
cleared out at the end.
Okay, so well, Damphirs are basically half vampires. Like they're half mortal, or half something, half vampire. So like when I refer
It's basically
to
two 14th and 15th generations boinked, and then magically a Damphir shows up. There's the most logical shortwave way of explaining it.
generations
Just
being
drops it off.
generations
Vampires
generations
can actually
translation
They
generations
can-
translation being the number of instances from the
Kane.
from Cain or the progenitor.
Yeah,
Like
the
the
progenitor.
big progenitor,
The
not
big
not
guy.
like not the progenitor of your vampire, but like the
The
first
beginning.
progenitor.
The beginning.
So
and
like
the end,
as you get like higher up in or lower in generation
Lower.
numbers, you get in White Wolf's realms, you get significantly more powerful.
unless you're the third generation.
No,
Oops.
that's
Yes.
no, that's terrifying.
Let's talk about the second and the third generation. Come on.
Oh gosh. Okay, so
Let's just talk about Ravenloft and be done with it.
that's where we're heading, and nobody wants to go there.
Ravenloft, let's go visit Dracula.
All right.
Cathedral flag.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's a good point. In chat right now, they're talking about Callus and the substance that is in the chalice. I mean, like I can see that degree being again vampiric.
Hmm.
I don't know if I would call Cabal vampires.
Would it be vampiric or just cannibalistic?
Yeah. Well,
that feels that one feels more to me cannibalistic.
They do derive strength, right? Because they grow. What is it? Grow fat
They grow fat from strength.
or whatever. So they do have a degree
Whatever.
of they consume and I get.
This callus, I don't know.
I mean, I can see Callus's chalice being something of a blood sacrifice for sure. Even because I mean, well, technically it is on a planetary level, because it's literally the ground up. It's well, and Black Flag is true. Like I mean, yeah, that's true. Callus isn't really. You could argue Callus isn't a Cabal anymore either.
True.
But I mean, I guess from the Cabal sense, they have if anything, I would see the Cabal almost like a Aztecan equivalency. Like, you know, they make their blood sacrifices and they gain strength from that. That's
the dresser fits, that's for sure.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. It actually does really well. But that's again, that's not. I would argue I would personally think that would not be vampirism technically, but more of blood magic.
So
thaumaturgical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely thaumaturgical.
Oh yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so I've used that term a couple times, and I just realized no one probably knows what that is. Thaumaturgy is blood magic. It's basically magic that is using it's using the power of the life force stored within blood to be basically the component that gives power to a spell. That's really a boiled down definition of it.
It was very dumb, basic version.
So Vuru brought
It's
up a
very
funny
interesting.
one.
Oh no.
Vuru brought up
God, no!
Oh, here we go.
You know, I'm not entirely surprised that it came
Yeah.
up. Like
Drifter's just hungry. I don't think like he's
Drifter,
Not
you know
gaining
what?
anything
Drifter's the
out of
corner
it.
pot dealer that just can't
No,
stop eating.
Drifter is the Donner Party of the Guardians. Like
Jesus.
he really is. Like
He really is.
He's just obsessed with eating.
Hey
Like
man, I'll sell you these cheeseburgers. Don't ask what they are, though. No.
Gosh.
hey,
Is
did you see the group of Guardians that went into the Gambit? No, I don't know where they went. Do you want some pork butt? I got some
yummy.
good barbecue over here.
Drifter is the main reason why I actually enjoyed Callus's little fanboy written book. Just the way that he died, I pictured.
Oh,
the
God.
bunny rabbit.
We're-
I pictured the bunny rabbit on Wreck-It Ralph.
Oh.
He just keep putting it.
Oh no.
Oh no.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I can't unsee it.
Yeah, Drifter, I would say, is Donner Party more than a vampire. He's a Wendigo.
Tastes like long pork.
Ugh.
It wasn't pulled pork.
Tastes like long pork.
You mentioned the Karnstein armlets. Do you want to talk a little bit about it? I know that we had the snapshot, but do you want to talk about it on the show?
I mean, so like, I guess the biggest thing with Karnstein armlets is that it is referencing a guardian. So a guardian did create the armlets, and it's basically like this slight passive nod to what happens. What is this guardian? Like, is this guardian actually Carmilla that has been reincarnated, which is also just like the possibility of that is just, for me, really fascinating. But really, more than anything, you know, I kind of looked at it from Carmilla as like a psychological point of view, because Carmilla is also very heavily a story of abuse, like significantly abuse. And so like the Karnstein armlets actually beg the question, if you are doing what the Karnstein armlets are asking you, which is basically using them, you're actually helping an abuser hunt down their victim, which is, it's a really kind of a interesting mind game to play. As far as like connections to the vampire, you know, really that the connection to the vampire itself is in the name. That was really kind of it. It does use what they refer to as a neuromech trawl, and the point of that is that it's literally scouring the neural pathways of the victim that is being struck for any they're referred to as engrams, but they're basically memories of the target, which is, if you're going to go with the Carmilla route, would be Laura. That's really a rough synopsis of what the snapshot talks about, with the question of like, are we the hunter? Are we going to take the role of the person who enables the abuser and who helps the vampire hunt down its prey? Or are we, you know, do you have a choice? Like, are you going to be a vampire hunter, or are you going to be a vampire thrall?
Here's the one that I was really wanting to dive into. This is the idea of xenophage. So in xenophage, and that has been transformed
Again.
or not by choice, of course. cards that Bungie actually curses in, which I think is kind of fun. They were just trying to kill me. They were using me to get to my light, to drain it from my soul. For their 6 5 here. But the concept of transforming the prey, the obvious transforming the prey into the vampire as well. Is there examples of a type of vampire that does this to their prey?
That transforms the victim?
Mm-hmm.
Or wait, like, oh, you mean like enthralls them? Like so you mean transforms the victim into a vampire? Or you mean transform it like... Sorry, I'm not following the question.
So in the card, the guardian's transformed into essentially the bug that is in Xenophage.
Supposedly, right.
So I'm something smaller now.
Mm-hmm.
The vengeance, it's the focus, like super focused into vengeance and everything and ready to hurt things, but into something other, not themselves, not into something that they themselves ever wanted to be, but something into hateful, wanting to get vengeance of some way, shape, or form. And I mean, this one's Omar. Omar is basically not necessarily transformed into a vampire himself, but he's hungry to get his own vengeance on the Hive who transformed him into this.
Right. So counterpoint to that, when you talk about phage as like a part of like bacteriophage, bacteriophages literally translates into eater of bacteria. The entire point of the phage is to destroy the bacteria. A phage is something that is basically a virus that infects and replicates within. A bacteriophage would infect and replicate within the bacteria. So when you have a xenophage, it's something that would be literally an eater of xeno, which is alien. So your xenophage has been replicated, i.e. you have the bug worm, and it is obsessed with destroying xenos, the xenoforms. Right. So now my further conclusion, or my further kind of point here, is like we also have weapons that have AI, sentient AI. So I really bet, I'm just throwing it out there that this could be a situation where it's not actually Omar. It's a weapon AI that has been designed as a xenophage, like a literal xenophage. And it has taken on the guise to make that logical leap for wanting that revenge into the form of a guardian who has been killed.
Okay.
Which would make infinitely more sense than a third resurrection into a bug of a guardian.
Regardless, they were draining him.
Right. Yeah. They
which is the vampiric side of the thing. But is there any?
So I mean, you have vampires.
Instances of it being transformed.
Mm-hmm, yeah, you have instances within. I mean, Dracula. He does this to Lucy. He makes her into a thrall, or I think the other term that they'll use sometimes is a ghoul. Though that's confusing because ghouls are also, well, anyways, thralls are usually the term that they use, and that's basically someone who is literally it's enthralled to the vampire, and sometimes you can have them where they will literally feed blood back to the victim in order to develop that connection. Usually within most vampiric mythos, like the vampire will feed on whatever victim. Now, if the vampire feeds and doesn't kill that victim, which is a big thing, like if they're setting him up to be a feeder, what they can also do is they can feed back their own blood to that victim, which will then enthrall that individual to the vampire. It won't make them a vampire, because the catalyst to become a vampire is death. Like the individual would have to die. And then there's, depending on the myth, you have different processes and all that.
Oh, many processes.
Yeah, I mean, pick your culture, you're gonna have a different process. Like it's ridiculous how random and now that. But like the concept of like psychologically morphing them and enslaving them, I guess in a way, I guess that would be in a way changing them. Like they don't make them, Renfield aside, because Renfield's a psychotic special case. Like Lucy, she didn't become a vampire until she died, and she became a fledgling basically, and that's when she actually began feeding on other children, or so that's when she began feeding on the children. But while she was alive and enthralled to Dracula, like she never displayed the hunger that a vampire would display. She was just she just wasted away. Like she eventually he literally drained her, and she died, and then he resurrected her as a because he was recreating his, it's not really a harem, but it was his brood, I guess. I don't know what would be the best term for that. He was recreating the 3 brides that had been across the ocean, and she was the first. And so like when he did that, that's when she actually changed and actually began hunting. But like
Vampire mythos, the direct need, like the have to hunt aspect of it.
well,
To
like the
hunt to live.
hunger, like that hunger that
Right.
what's referred to as I think it's sanguinism. That generally doesn't exist. Renfield within the Dracula mythos, Renfield is a character who is obsessed with Dracula, but really honestly, you never really see Dracula like. It's hinted that Dracula is feeding off Renfield, and there's a lot of hints that Renfield is aware of Dracula, but like he finally gets gifted right before he dies, and he's like in a euphoric state. But like Renfield is the only one that, while he is still alive, is obsessed with sanguination, and it's also it's really strongly argued that that's not because of Dracula's influence. It's because Renfield is, I mean, forgive me, but he's batshit insane. Like he is completely off his rocker, and he just fixates on Dracula because, again, Dracula has that magnetic personality of power. Renfield as a psychopath, his psychotic break is around the obsession of consumption of power. And so he fixates on Dracula as the strongest entity and serves him of his own free will. Lucy, like social commentary in the book aside, Lucy is probably the best example of an Omar figure, if you would. And she is fed upon until she dies. And then that's when the transformation, like that's when Dracula forces that transformation on her. And then they eventually will kill her. They go out and kill her, which is where I think it's Quincy. And then that's where they kind of bond in the story. But so, I mean, the transformation is something that death is a catalyst for. So I guess in that sense, the xenophage entry, if we're going to take it on face value, would be vampiric, again, because the Hive are involved. And if the Hive are vampires, then they could create a hybridization. It's interesting to me though, because like that's where the similarities would stop. because within the vampiric mythos, when Dracula creates Lucy as a vampire, or as a whatever you want to call her, she's there is no Lucy left. Like, Lucy's dead. She is a shell, and she is if anything, she's an animal. Like, her base desire, her base drive is she is hungry and she needs to eat. She will not attack Dracula, or it's implied that she won't go against Dracula. We never see Lucy and Dracula interact after she's dead. Like, we do. There's never a scene with the two of them. So, like, with the xenophage being obsessed with destruction of the hive is an interesting twist, if that's, if we want to go down that connection, because the victim that would become a vampire, like White Wolf is a really good example of this. Like, the vampire creates a child, is what's referred to, the child and the sire. The child can't do direct harm to its sire, because by doing direct harm to its sire, it actually in turn hurts itself, because they're connected by the process of the gift of the unlife. Now, that's a role-playing game, so there's a little bit of, modern woo thrown in there.
Oh, yeah. And it's not just the role-playing game that you have that aspect. It shows up in the Jim Butcher books as well. Like, it's a modern take on it. If you kill the sire, the generations
that's from Dracula. Dracula has the same logic as well, because they, at the end, which, that's one of the reasons they kill Dracula, is because they're trying to save Minna. And the only way they can save Minna is to stop the transformation at its root, which is Dracula. So that's why they stake and behead him, is because Minna is transforming into a vampire in the same way that Lucy was, and they can't stop it. And so in order to cease the corruption, that's the entire driving force behind, the major driving force behind the killing of Dracula. So the connection, the connection between, and that goes back to, that's even like human, the lineage of genealogy is kind of there. It's not as drastic. Like, if you were to kill a parent, the child is not going to die, really. But like, the genealogical connection would be severed. Like, that family heir, or that family line would, right. In a way it would be, but not as extreme, which goes back into mythology being very, very black and white and extreme. Like, a lot. Let's
talk about
legends.
The hive, since they're the biggest tie into it, because you talk about the lineage of everything. Now, granted, killing the head of the snake doesn't necessarily make everything else falter. We killed Oryx, and he still has remnants within his brood, as well as Zavathun and her brood. But the hive themselves, the krill, were they vampiric before we ever got to the point
they were
of
cannibalistic.
The worm, or was that?
They were cannibalistic, but they were not. I don't think they were vampiric. I could be wrong. We know they were cannibalistic, though, because they ate the sisters, right?
Yes. Yeah. The what is it? The osmium court.
No, the hydrogen court ate the osmium quartz. There was another court, and it ate the sisters. Helium drinkers. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So there was. Yeah. Neocultal is talking about ritualistic cannibalism. Yeah,
they were sacrificed,
and it was called out as kind of being like, oh well, crap.
This is
like,
normal.
Yeah, it's like,
So
darn it, they drew the short straw. They were at home when they came visiting.
respect, is it the worms themselves that are the actual vampiric? Because there's some vampire stories that I had that it's more of like the parasite within them that is the actual
Going back to the
vampiric.
strain.
I'm going back to the strain as well as a few other
Right, yeah. Well, I
stories
mean,
that are out there.
that's like the one of the theories about where the origin of vampirism kind of crops up is I think it's tuberculosis, the wasting disease. But yeah, no, I mean, I would argue that the worms are, and which is actually was going to be my comment when you said, well, we killed Oryx, but his brood didn't die. Right. Oryx isn't necessarily the progenitor, though. Because remember, you have the you have the 5 worm gods. And so and I don't know, like I don't know how much of an accurate parallel they're drawing here, but I'd be curious if you actually managed to take out one of those worm gods, like legitimately, not like Akka it, like actually removed the worm god, what would happen to its brood? Because each one of those worm gods has its own brood, even within the court of Oryx. There's knights, you know, the I just blanked on them. The knights that guard Crota's swords.
I know who you're talking about too.
Right. I complete. There's one knight for each of the worm gods. Is basically what I'm going for.
The Swarm Prince.
Yes. Yeah. There's a prince for each worm, except for Zol, which is really fun. Which goes into a completely different conspiracy theory that I have that I'm not going to get into. But there is a prince for each of the worm gods. And so to me, that tells me that each of their... And then like when we finally did get access to the Dreadnought, we had each worm god had its own chest. Like there was there was chests for each one of the worm gods. So like the Swarm Princes... Yeah, sorry, chat's talking about... The Swarm Princes were the ones who guarded the sword of Crota. They weren't Crota, like they held in their name Swarm Prince yada yada of Zul or of Akka or whatever. Akka was the one that they didn't have. That was what it was. So yeah, thank you, Mind Map of Osiris, for that. Yeah, God, Swarm Prince. Oh, it's Swarm. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, I would say the worm gods would be more accurately the vampiric force, which brings us to the Ahamkara.
Okay. I'm going to let somebody else take the lead on this one as far as like asking questions, because I don't even know which direction to go with this one. It's the wishing.
It is. It's a psychological. It's a psychological vampirism, and you still have the modeling of the O blank mine as a I can't remember what it was called. Is it a Kabbalah? Is that what they referred to it as? I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was basically the structure of that phrase imprisons the wisher. It's basically psychologically doing what the worm gods do to light, to the individual's light. Like I kind of have a feeling that they consume the same thing. It's just the manner of consumption is different. Kabbalah. Kabbalah. It looks like something that would taste really good.
Look like kebab.
Kebab.
Kebabs.
The kebabs of the
So-
Ahamkara.
I like kebabs.
Is the Ahamkara, I don't know, are they really vampiric though in the psychological sense rather than more like a djinn?
Yeah, but see, I
djinns-
would argue djinn are slightly vampiric. Well, it depends on what djinn you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
Some-
I would say
some
that the
can be.
Ahamkara definitely are.
Some can be vampiric, and I think the Ahamkara, they derive sustenance from granting wishes. Like that was one
But
of
at
the
the same
things.
time, those
like a
wishes
psychic
rarely ever work.
vampire level of
Right.
that
It's
whole
what
avenue
is
on
it?
that
Is
one.
it Aka? Is it oh gosh, what is it? I'm gonna go look. Real quick.
Direction you're heading.
I'm going to say you mentioned Akka and Wish Dragons.
Mention it. Blue mentioned it.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is that he's mentioned in the Wish Dragons together.
The
Mhm.
worm gods and the wish dragons.
Hey, look, they're the same. Never mind. I'm not even gonna get down that path.
Oh,
my
please. I want to get Justin to come on here and do his dragon theory and then show
no!
him
My
Riven.
brain would break again if he does that stupid dragon theory.
Oh my god!
I want to show him Riven.
Oh god, he would
The full body
freak
picture
out.
of Riven.
Uh-huh.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
God. I will say this: in all honesty, the Ahamkara I think could definitely be seen as vampiric, but I kind of look at them more as the parasitic / symbiotic relationship, more so, or just like, or in the same way that I do with the worm gods. I don't feel like the worm gods were really that vampiric so much as they taught taught the hive to be vampiric in order to.
Well, but
feed
the
them.
worms that infested the hive, because remember, every single hive has a worm in it.
Mhm.
To feed off of
Well,
the light
are
in
we-
order
are you
to
sure about that?
grow.
Yeah. Every single hive
Well-
has a worm in it.
Mm.
Then which ones was Eris talking about?
Sorry, you broke up. What?
These.
Which
So
one is
the-
Eris talking about?
Yeah, who are Eris talking about then when she says if they don't have any worms, how do they communicate with the darkness?
Mm-hmm. I know that
When
it's
a hive dies, what happens to their worm?
the
And is the
same
worm
thing
attached
that
to their
happened.
soul?
Well, so
So-
that's the same thing that happened. Well, that's the whole difference between a descendant hive and the whole regular hive.
Mhm.
Because ascendant hive would have fed its worm enough to be able to craft a throne world, which would then give the worm within it the same capabilities as the hive shell. I mean, basically, I view the hive as a really, really effed up version of a Russian doll. Where
Matryoshka doll. Yep.
yeah, where I really question if it's actually the hive that are doing what's being done. You know, it's like, are we playing a really perverted game of Ratatouille here?
Well, one of the things that I had originally talked to Green about way back in the day was just how much of the actual hive was left. Because if you look at the hive, like the acolytes, just the way they're drawn or the way their characters are sculpted in the game, the worm is their head. Like if you look at the worms that are always around on the ground, look at their heads as they evolve and everything. That middle piece
Mm-hmm.
very well looks like that's a worm that's just sitting inside of their skull.
That would make sense. Because if
But-
you do a crit kill on some of them, that's when you get to see the fun little worm.
Yeah, the worm scrunching around.
Scrunchy.
So I
Squish.
don't know. That's one of the things that I was. But yeah, going back to the Ahamkara and the wishes, I think they probably sit more along the lines of parasite / symbiote, more or a symbiotic relationship rather than vampiric.
That's what a vampire is, essentially.
Mm-hmm. It's the reason they call ticks.
Okay, so I don't know. I see in a general scale vampires being parasites, but normally with a parasite or with a symbiote or symbiotic relationship, there's a benefit to having the host body. The vampire himself or herself or themselves, yes, they are benefiting with the eternal life. Like the actual becoming a vampire is symbiosis or is a symbiosis of sorts, but I don't see vampirism in that. I see the or I don't see the acts of vampirism. I see the benefits or the I don't know, a relatable cause and effect. So it'd be like if becoming an Ahamkara would be similar to being a vampire, in that it gives you both benefits and negatives that end up feeding on things that give you strength. If that makes sense.
Yes.
About the devouring of the ki or the chi. I mean, we kind of talked about how all vampirism in Destiny is basically kind of that Eastern style of vampirism. Is there the consumption of each other's as guardians?
Well, I mean, that goes back
Fairly
to
vampiric, even though we're not vampires.
Now
Oh,
we get into
Raz,
the
you want to
integrated
take that
area of
one?
this episode.
I mean, what was it I said earlier? Where was it? Literally, the Night Stalker tab. I mean, really, literally the last line: "Eat my friends, eat. We are fucking vampires." Okay, with the whole thing with the void.
Well, no, but I mean, what about she's asking about vampires feeding on vampires?
Vampires. Oh, Diablo is so delicious. It's tasty. Do we
Do
really
it.
want to go into that part?
I mean,
We haven't
my
taken
point.
the
My
angle
point.
yet.
Yeah, my
Please.
point is that does also exist in vampire
Yeah,
mythology.
it very,
like,
it very much exists. I mean, you get into that whole aspect with the vampires, just like I said earlier, like you're consuming life and knowledge, and like the older you get with some of them, it's the beautiful prize that you want. You paint a target on your back and you just run away. You just the better part, just run away while you can.
it's not. It's
Because
not.
whatever.
Like again, within White Wolf, they present it as. I mean, it's the same as in today's world, cannibalism would be seen.
Mhm.
Except, I mean, it's much stronger because you also have a component of power transference. But it would be, it's. I mean, it's like you say the
Everything.
Donner Party, and the kind of reaction that a lot of people have. That would be very similar to the sense that is in there.
Yeah.
I do not have another on this one unless you guys have something.
I'm just surprised that the topic of guardians eating other guardians didn't go way more south than that. I was expecting a lot more.
I
came
am
at the end.
censoring myself so
It also
much. Give me
came
some
at the
credit.
end of the episode, so
Yeah,
Is it-
yeah.
Raz, is it the Kyujin? Is that the
Kuejin, yeah.
Kyujin?
The
That's the
that
that's
was the eastern one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the Jade Kingdom core, where the chi yin yang balance, that if one's offset, they go like batshit, the Akuma level of.
But they're also the ones that they absorb soul. They don't absorb blood, right?
Yeah, theirs is all chi based, energy based versus blood. The Eastern, the Jade Kingdom courts do energy. Western, aka like the 13 clans and subsect of the bloodline, theirs is all blood and
interesting
thaumaturgy.
question.
But the black-
I mean,
I don't want to.
Hmm?
That's a whole nother can of worms. Black flag.
can that be done to Exos? Can the
Can what?
I'm guessing the life stealing.
Yeah, light
the soul-
exists.
the soul.
Anima. I mean, again, anima is the So,
When we're taking the energy from each other and as guardians, we're not taking the soul. We're taking the light, the energy source.
correct.
That's different.
Yes. So
Right.
like you have it's basically a triangle, right? You have the physical body, you have anima, and then you have what's referred to as nous. Nous would be the soul. That's the actual in the Aristotelian model. And there's some further divisions, but basically you have the physical body, You have the anima, which is literally animating spirit, and then you have the nous, which is the seat of consciousness or the soul. The I want to call it spirit, but it's not. There's a differentiation between spirit and soul. Spirit, everything has a spirit. Grass has a spirit. Grass does not have a soul, because the spirit is literally the animating force of the universe. It's the harmony from the music of the spheres that is moving everything. But that is not to say that everything has nous to direct it. Another way to look at it is it translates really nicely into the Freudian breakup of ego, superego, and id. Your id would be your body, your physical form. The superego is going to be your nous, and your ego is going to be, your superego would be the anima, and the ego would be the nous. The anima.
It's like, wait a second.
Right, yeah, no, I flipped them. Forgive me, I'm doing all this off the top of my head. The anima pushes the body. It actually is like when I move my hands, that's in the Aristotelian model, that's the anima.
Okay.
The nous is the carriage driver that is telling the body, like it's telling the body through the reins, which are the anima, where to go.
Right.
It's directing where we go through the anima.
Question on that then: are there vampires that go out that absorb the nous? Then
you want to talk about the soul suckers?
Well, technically, with creatures that would have both anima and nous, so anima and nous are in the Aristotelian model kind of intertwined. Like you can't, for humans, you don't really have one without the other. Like humans, and there's a couple other like animals that he viewed as on there's a certain level at which you have like nous shows up basically. Like a fish doesn't have nous in the Aristotelian model because it's just base. I'm gonna eat. Like that's not nous. So like when you have a vampire that consumes another human, yes, actually arguably the vampires would be only consuming nous. That's why Greek vampires are really weird. Because if I remember, and this is me trying to remember this, Greek vampires are one of the few mythologies where they can't consume animals. Like they can consume them, but it actually doesn't give them any benefit.
Sustenance.
Like it's like it's empty calories. Like for a vampire, basically.
So
whereas like
that,
Dracula can, or sorry, go for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the empty calories thing that you're talking about, and this is kind of where I was tying Flag was saying, when it comes to exos, because I know that there's the whole rabbit hole that you can go down of, the memories where they came from. If the person the memories came from got resurrected,
right,
so,
yeah.
You get where I'm going with that.
Mm-hmm.
So with an exo, granted the light is with the traveler, once the ghost wakes them up, what is the light connected to with an exo that could be drained from them?
That would be anima.
I mean, that would be the anima, right? Okay.
Right. Well, and then so.
And does a machine have anima? That's another thing where it's like
everything has anima.
Everything.
If it moves, it has anima. Like that's the thing with Aristotelians. Like it's very. Yeah, it's literally just energy. It's like rocks. Rocks have anima. They just don't have a lot of it. Right. Think about it. Rocks technically move. Everything moves. It's just they don't move really fast. Like it was very. The entire universe had a mind of its own. That was the entire point of the music of the spheres from an Aristotelian point of view, was that everything was being orchestrated by the first mover, right? Everything ultimately was going back to that concept of it is an orchestra that's being played. Everything is being done in tandem for a reason that goes back to the logic that if you could track it back, it would all make sense. You know, the whole thing of, and so with that being said, everything did have a spirit. Not everything had a soul. And that was where your concept of Aristotle's like idea of like the Elysian fields and things like that, that's where they could coexist with saying that a rock had a spirit, but it wasn't going to, like, if you destroyed the rock, you weren't going to send the rock to heaven, because that's not the part that got sent. That's not the eternal part. And then you also had like things like the world soul, which is a little bit later in his like concept, but like, you know, the Gaia forms is what's referred to. And that's a whole different level. It's not really nous. It's not really, and that's again, that goes into like there was a division within nous that he used to explain like habitual actions and conscious decisions to choose something, right? You know, like there's he breaks it. It's really cool, but he does go down pretty far into describing the psychological construction of choices themselves. Yeah, sorry, Lamia and Streaks. Yeah, sorry, I saw Raz's Lamias are just weird as Lamias are weird. They're
Lamia
so
are
weird.
amazing though.
I mean, they're interesting, but they're weird. Like they're
out there. But I mean, they didn't. I mean, but you're gonna split hairs because eventually they didn't really quite terminology shift them as vampires. Like that went off on the warlocky, wizardy, witchy thing with the Greek side of it, though.
Right.
I mean, they were
nothing wrong with warlocks.
Well, because Lamia was Lamia was a daemon, I think, right, in mythology.
Yeah, daughter.
And she nom kids is what she did.
Yeah, they devoured children.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, trying to remember the rest of it. Yeah,
Green. Did we answer all your questions? By giving you more questions?
Hey, I ran out of questions a while ago.
I gave up.
Oops.
Wow, black flag. Can't handle the truth. It drives.
So, shout outs.
Raz, you want to go first?
No.
Fine. Let's see. Do shout outs to Ishtar Collective for tonight, because I've been perusing all their stuff and it never ceases to how much stuff goes into that website and how much organization is there to be able to find the kind of lore entries and everything that you need, especially trying to go through and find everything for vampires within Destiny that you would not even think remotely to have anything in Destiny automatically just pop into your head regarding it. But the way they have it organized and the way the keywords and everything work, it makes it so much easier to do any kind of real research into the Destiny lore. So definitely a huge shout out to them for running the website the way they do.
Indeed. Raz, what about you? Or Green? Did we get Green back?
I think, maybe.
Is that it?
Is it?
Okay.
Raz, what about
Connection
you?
isn't that strong right now.
There you go.
Sorry.
There we go.
The internet is being weird. Shout outs to the gaming community that continues to see things objectively. There are those of you out there. Thank you very much. Shout outs to also devs who keep an eye on the community and are the quiet voices in the background encouraging us. Things happened in the community this week. Just wanted to watching. We see you. Good job.
That's not creepy. Raz, what about you?
It could be the other way.
Y'all
It could be the other way around.
Well, that's
Y'all
true.
booped on the snoot.
Pooped on the snoot.
Booped on the snoot.
We're watching you.
I will toast to
Turn the shower back on.
Oh, Lord. Terms of service. I will toast to the visual parts of the community, all the artists out there. They give us wonderful, great things to stare at, to fantasize about, and make things a little bit brighter in the mornings. You know. What was that?
Nothing. Nothing.
That's what I thought.
Mara, what?
But no. Did Mara? No. But no. A serious.
I am all about the genre art anymore.
Yeah, we ain't going there.
Community, step it up. I need more Petra.
And before we go down that rabbit hole too far, I wanted to actually give a big shout out to both of you guys, Raz and Wykid, for agreeing to allow us to torture you, or volunteer
Seriously
to torture
torturing you.
us. I think it's more of you torturing us. But anyways,
I don't know about that. I don't
Well,
know about that, but I mean, you know.
but also big shout out to Wykid for the lore bites. I know that's a strenuous schedule to do. So
It is
big.
I'm trying
big
to get everything back into getting everything on a normal release, especially with having just moved into the new house. So it's getting itself back to that point.
Yeah. So, but with all that being said, again, want to thank you for your time. And until next time, remember, with wisdom we conquer, stand strong, stand tall, and keep exploring. This guy can go fuck his hat.
Really?
Yeah. God damn, out of my way. I'm running strikes. I'm running strikes for this, for like experience, and this guy just keeps like running in front of me and then stopping, and I'm like, God damn it, get out of the way!
I just love a grin and chat. Really?
Oh,
I need more Petra.
I'm sorry. Not my fault. You picked her as the character you like to play as. Not my fault.
Huh.
I
like how Black Flag
That
was
character.
immediately like, would you like to respond?
Green, your response?
Not the point.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Anybody out
follow
there
up. I would like to. What Wolf Blitzer? What?
What? Hey?
No, green. Black Flag's over here coordinating the debate that's going on. Green, would you like to respond?
Oh.
You have 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh, I do not want to be a part of a debate. Thank you.
Oh, Lord.
Mm,
I'm just
yeah.
saying. Petra doesn't mind getting her hands there. And yeah, she does what she likes.
RPs bring you great joy. Well, I'm glad that they make you happy, Black Flag. Yeah.
At least they make someone happy.
There's that, but it's just really funny because there was a time where I was writing the RPs and I didn't tell anybody that was me. And somebody who's still in chat tonight posted it in the mod. And
Oh God.
Piz, you're such a sweetie. Oh goodness.
We
don't know if
shan't
you
speak of that
remember
time
that.
ever again.
I,
Right?
it was pretty amusing.
Oh dear God. I can't
Just
remember
the
this
fact that it
story.
showed up in our oh my gosh.
You were doing a show at that point, weren't you? When that happened, weren't
I mean we weren't doing the show when he
right?
put in there midday. Is all. Yeah. Well, considering the story that you particularly posted, it was one of the more adult themed ones that Petra did. That it caught me off guard.
It caught me off guard. I posted it, but it caught me off guard.
No, it caught me off guard that he had been reading like
Delicious.
my own mod was reading.
I get a freaking Discord
bad.
message randomly today.
Oh God.
Yeah. It was one of those moments that I was just like, oh shit, he's gonna kill me if he ever writing this.
My world should not be connected like this. Not like this. Not like this.
Corner pins, it's fine. Stopped writing that kind of stuff on Twitter, particularly because people now know it's me.
Good God.
That was funny though. That was absolutely
funny.
freaking
My brain shorted. Oh my gosh. My brain shorted out when that happened. Which part? Black Flag. There's a lot of moments.
There were a couple.
A lot.
It's like you were there, Wykid, you would know.
I enjoy my writing. Leave me
No.
alone.
I know. No.
Oh my god, this grenade launcher is so much fun.
Order's Retribution?
I'm literally just hitting knockers in the face with it.
Oh my god.
It's like, you have a wall of fire, and you have a wall of fire, and oh yeah, you have a wall of fire.
It's like just punching him over and over.
I know,
face.
it's.
Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself?
Don't punch knockers in the face. The internet's gonna get real bad.
He learned from Crota.
God, that freaking video was awesome. Oh man.
Yeah.
Come here, you. Shit, go away!
English?
What?
Is that English?
I said, come here, you. Yeah. It's English.
Where you?
Listen,
is
I'm
what I heard.
not. It's not my fault. You're not a good listener.
Excuse me?
Damn.
I'm gonna run away! Run away! Run away!
I have my
Utilize that
Xbox
I'm in
here.
danger thing. Yeah.
I'm in danger!
Shaft up your ass.
And you called me the woman.
Oh my
Green's about to.
goodness.
Never mind.
just no. Stop while you're still ahead. Stop while you're still ahead.
Can do it. Run, Blue! Run! You hear the doo-doo-doo as the Xbox turns on.
Nope. Doo-doo-doo. What happened? I turned off the Xbox. I know my limit.
Oh, don't worry, Dead again. She smacks me all the time. Yes. Oh, no. Black Flag correction. All smart men are whipped.
Yeah.
The rest are single.
Yeah. Or dead.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. No. I have no shame in admitting. Oh God.
Yep.
I suddenly have some inspiration. Okay.
Uh-oh.
And that's the cue to run.
Run away! Brave Sir Robin.
Right? You did not. Oh man.
This was a scratch.
Earmuffs.
See? Oh man. But never far enough. You'll never outrun the chocolate.
That's what tethers are
Exactly, that's what a bow's for.
for.
Don't mention bows. Oh god.
I may
No.
have put Wykid through his paces earlier. Both Dwyer and I had bows on.
I heard.
There was stomping involved, not
Ha!
paces.
Knife to the face.
Aw. Muffin.
Yes. Yes.
Only die tired. I like that.
That's
Don't run, you'll
what's
die.
that?
Yep.
Sniper?
Mhm.
Isn't that the sniper?
Mhm.
Don't run.
Yeah,
like-
you'll only
It's up
die
there. It's
tired.
up there with the. I think it's the IED specialist. If you see me running while wearing this shirt, try to keep up.
Just try to keep up.
Don't ask questions.
Rihanna's with a sidearm. That's a pretty decent pairing.
All right.
Just don't like how much kick. Like it doesn't have any more time between the shots than a bow does, but it just the animation throws me.
It's just how fast you can freaking just with specifically with Dwyer and his ability ping and almost immediately switch to his freaking hand cannon. It just
Oh,
feels
yeah.
like there's just so little time to react on it. It's like,
That's
oh
one of the
God.
cheesy moves because if you have quick draw on a hand cannon and you use Le Monarch, if you land a headshot with the bow and immediately switch out, it'll proc another headshot because there's no lift. That's part of the problems with it right now because it's a bow. He's able to do it. I don't know if you knew that was it's literally the fact that if you quick draw just brings you on to where your cursor was. So if you
Mhm.
don't move, or if the person with the bow in the head at the moment doesn't move, they're going to be dead.
Yeah.
Zombie theory: don't be faster than the zombie, just faster than the guy who's faster than the zombie.
Wait. Yeah. The how the ED handles stress. It's like, if I'm wrong, it's not my problem. It's not my problem anymore. Like, you're not wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I love that one.
I'm either right or I don't have any more worries.
Hmm.
All right.
I think it's time for me to hop off of here.
Oh, apparently I
2:15 in the
got
morning.
Bastion. And
Congratulations.
And delete.
Not too bad of a little gun.
I'm about to say, I actually found it quite fun and useful.
Isn't that it's a fusion rifle, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting fusion rifle.
You know what it didn't do? It didn't unlock the fucking ability to donate. So
Oh my god.
I'm seriously confused as shit why I can't donate.
Just hit it harder.
I really, at this point, I'm right. I'm almost there.
Just tighten
Just
spline it.
tighten it.
Tighten spline it.
Just tighten it.
Tighten spline.
All right. Catch you guys later.
All right. Stream, have a great night. We will see you guys later. Thanks for hanging out with us. Yes, I am clearing my triumphs. That's how I just found out that I had Bastion, was I was clearing the triumph that said I had Bastion. It's like, oh, I was like, I don't pay attention. I'm like, whatever. I was doing something for Spider, and then it said, "Go talk to the dude that feeds birds," and I was like, "Cool." Black Flag's like, I fucking give up on you. All right, stream. You guys have a great night. We will see you next week.